Hello friends. This is Percy in Goddess Fiction. How are you all? So in this video, we will see. What if Percy went in DBZ verse with powerful forces to destroy universe of DBZ? But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also if possible share this video. No sun rose that tragic fateful day where blazing flames of orange and yellow simmered down to nothing but black ashes. Burned bloody day-year-old corpses littered the ground, trees, and whatever was left of the buildings as the odor of death carried in the chilling breeze. No life made a sound as all was lost during the invasion. No one saw it coming. No one expected their once long-forgotten allies to retaliate and attack them. They came in only hundreds against the young and elderly with beasts that would be a marvelous sight to anyone who saw them. But they were exposed to darkness that enabled them to see what was right from wrong. They fought long and hard for 2 days straight, no time to call for backup. This had the campers all at a disadvantage. Now only a few from that ruble remained. "Are you sure you all can do this?" A wise fading voice echoed through the chic darkness of the burned-down forest. This figure, as well as the other three, were all gravely injured along with being coated with a layer of warm black ashes. They would be completely camouflaged if it wasn't for their shaking limbs and rasping breaths. "Yeah. It'll be a piece of cake. What do you say, Annabeth?" A small quivered male voice asked. "I'm up for it, but being separated will cut our strength in half. You sure you want to spilt up, Percy?" He looked around at the horrified sight as anger swelled up within him. "It's the only way we can warn everyone else while getting help from other planets." Annabeth wanted to say something that could discourage him from going to another planet alone. But knowing Percy as well as she did, she knew there was no way to change his mind and pouted. "Who am I going with?" a gentle yet raspy teenaged girl named Serena asked. Smoke apparently filled up in her lungs. Percy and Annabeth looked at the new camper in confusion. She had only been here a day and they were unable to find out who her parent was. She was extremely tall for her age with rather long chocolate brown hair that reached to the bottom of her shoulders as little lighter brown streaks swayed beautifully, matching her Indian brown skin. Her beautiful shining brown eyes could make even the most depressed happy and charm any man that dared to look into them. As for her behavior so far, they were still unsure of. Overall, with all the madness that was accruing, they did indeed forget about her. She had been so quiet these past few hours yet, her determined spirit never receded. "Well, I guess you can come with me since you don't know who your godparent is," Annabeth replied with a hint of distaste in her voice. Serena shot Annabeth a death glare through the darkness. "Although, I still think your father is Hades." The teenaged girl nearly tackled Annabeth to the floor if it wasn't for Percy's intervene. "Maybe that's not the greatest idea." Annabeth looked Percy straight into his eyes with anger apparent. "And why not?" "Well, you two would probably kill each other once you're alone." Serena and Annabeth looked at each other before looking away immediately. The wise old woman sighed in disbelief. She couldn't believe how childish these three were acting. "Since none of you are being the mature one, I say that Serena goes with Percy and I shall go with Annabeth. Is that clear?" Annabeth wanted to go against this, but she found it better to just leave it alone. "Now does everyone know what we're doing?" Everyone nodded. "All right then, let's get this show on the road." Beep beep beep. An alarm clock sounded off for the 4th time that morning, apparently failing its job to wake up the eldest of the demi-Saiyans in the household. It did however stir the easily angered and over-motherly Chi-Chi, who looked ready to beat the life out of anyone who made her angry. She looked at the digital clock on her nightstand and nearly hit her head on the roof as she ran towards her son's room. Prying the door open, she quickly ran to her son's side and shook him awake. "Gohan, you're not awake yet?" she began as the 18-year-old Gohan slowly opened his eyes. "You're going to be late for school." His eyes drifted up to his alarm clock to see it read 7:05. "What? I overslept again," he hollered as he rushed to his clothes and quickly changed. Chi-Chi ran to the kitchen and prepared the rather large lunch that wouldn't even fill Gohan up, but at least he would have something to eat. All this racket causing the innocent pure little Godin who looked exactly like his father in every way to re-enter his house after chasing Ginyu, the frog. "What's with the rush, Mom?" Godin asked with his cute undying smile and wide black eyes. Chi-Chi, however, wasn't able to turn around to see this. "Your brother woke up late again." Godin smiled with much excitement. "Does this mean he can stay home and play with me?" I'm afraid not Goten. He can still make it if he flies there himself. Goten pouted. He never got to play with anyone anymore. Gohan was now attending a high school that was at least a 3-hour car drive away, and Trunks wasn't able to come over unless Bulma wanted to visit. The only thing he could do was study all day and go train with his mother, which wasn't fun as he had to hold back a lot since she wasn't a Saiyan. Gohan came rushing in as he grabbed his backpack and what his mother had finished making. "Bye Mom, bye Squirt. See you after school," he yelled as he ran out the door and took off towards his school with only 3 minutes till it started. The lonely 7-year-old boy watched from the kitchen window as his brother flew off, already feeling lonely. Chi-Chi noticed this and hugged her youngest son. "It's okay Goten. You can always go outside and play with your dinosaur friends. Actually 2 of them are dinosaurs, one of them is a dragon." Chi-Chi's face paled a bit at the thought of her 7-year-old son playing with a little baby dragon. Well, they're basically the same thing. She released Goten from her grasp, trying to convince herself with that very same statement. "I'll tell you what, I'll let you skip your studies today and you can go out and play whatever you want." Goten smiled again. "Really? No joke?" "No joke," she chuckled. "Wow, thanks Mom," he said as he ran out the door. "Be careful," she called back to her son, but it was obvious he didn't hear her. "Do whatever I want, Gohan flew as fast as he could when he finally made it to his school with 1 minute till class started. He sighed in relief as he looked upon the roof to see his stubborn friend Videl waiting for him there. He gulped in fear. "Oh, this can't be good," he mused to himself as he landed right next to her. She gave him a glare before quickly pulling him in for a huge. "Finally you show up." She released him a moment later with a playful smirk plastered upon her small thin lips. "And here I thought you were doing to abandon me." "That's nice and all, but we really need to get to class or we'll be late," Gohan replied, obviously not paying much attention to what she was saying. Videl noticed this immediately. "What are you hiding from me?" "Me? Nothing, but if I'm late one more time I'll get suspended." Ring ring ring. Gohan looked down in disbelief. "Oh man, Mom's gonna kill me." Videl looked at the tense Gohan, unable to keep her laughs suppressed anymore. Gohan looked up at her in confusion as he didn't understand why she would be laughing in a time like this. "I can't believe how pathetic you are." Am I missing something here?" he stuttered, obviously missing out on something important. "Duh. We don't have to get to class for another 5 minutes, you see. We just received 2 new transfer students this morning and they had to give the teachers 5 more minutes to discuss where they were going to place them." Gohan's jaw dropped. As that Sue, the final bell rang and everyone was now in their first-hour classes with each person hoping that the new students would be cool and not nerds like Gohan used to be, act like one in any case. "Okay class, settle down," the teacher commanded as everyone quickly took their seats. "As many of you all know, we received 2 new transfer students from the US this morning. I would like you to welcome them." The door opened as both a boy and girl about the age of 15 walk in. The boy had silky black short hair as the girl had medium smooth brown hair. "Hello, I'm Percy Jackson and I'm from the US. And I'm Serena, also from the US. Well, it's nice to have you both in our school here at Orange Star High. I hope you like it here. Now please, find an empty seat and sit down." "Hey Gohan, what do you think about the new students?" Videl asked before going quiet as she saw the tense look on Gohan's face. He didn't even blink for he sensed a high power level emitting from them. "What is it?" Videl whispered so only Gohan could hear. "It's those 2, they have a high power level, we better keep our eyes on them." Videl looked at the Serena and Percy as they took their seats right in front of them. This didn't help put Gohan at ease with them. "Gohan, please stop worrying about those 2. Videl pleaded as they sat down with Uraza and Sherpner at an outside table for their lunch period. Gohan sighed in stress as he couldn't figure out if what he sensed was good or evil. This irritated Videl to the point where she would have slapped him if he wasn't her boyfriend. "Gohan, are you even listening to me?" Gohan snapped out of his thoughts as he finally realized Videl was trying to talk to him. "Sorry Videl, what were you saying?" "You don't have to repeat it Videl. He's just jealous because he's afraid you like Percy." Sherpner chuckled as he couldn't wait to see how mad Videl would get. He wasn't disappointed. "What?" Gohan squeaked as he knew this wasn't going to end well. Videl slammed her fists against the table. "Gohan, is this true?" Were you just saying that you felt something strange just to cover up your jealousy? Gohan waved his hands in defense. No, Vital. It's not like that at all. Oh really? How'd I know that's not a lie? You tend to lie a lot, you know. I swear it's the truth, and in my defense, I only lie to keep my family's privacy, you know that. I hope we're not interrupting anything. Percy trailed off as both he and Serena took a seat next to Uraza, trying to ignore the heat between the two. Gohan looked at them suspiciously before feeling someone slug him in the arm, knowing it was Vital instantly. Don't worry, she began as she slouched in her chair a bit. You weren't interrupting anything. Gohan laughed nervously before sitting back down, slowly unpacking his lunch. I'm Percy and this is my friend Serena. What are your names? Vital crossed her arms and looked down with anger apparent on her face. Well, my name is Uraza. Uraza said happily. My name is Sharpener, and I work out my guns every day, he bragged before winking at Serena. Serena winced and would have slugged him in the arm if Percy didn't give her a death glare. Vital blew her short black bangs out of her eyes. I'm Vital Satan and he's the biggest jerk on this planet. I told you it wasn't true, he whined. Percy studied all of them intently as if trying to see if he could get a clue to which one they were supposed to be looking for. I'm Gohan, he sighed in grief before he dumped the rest of his lunch out of his bag. Serena and Percy's eyes went wide in shock as they saw how much food Gohan had with him. It was enough for 3 whole picnics. You're not gonna eat all of that, are you? Serena asked with her brown eyes wide. Gohan looked up at her weirdly. Yeah, why wouldn't I? Isn't that a little too much? Percy asked as shocked as Serena. Don't worry about brains. He can eat twice as much than that without having what muscle he does have turned into flab. But you might want to scoot away just a bit. Trust me, he's a slob when he eats. A slob? I'm way better than my dad when he eats, Gohan retorted a bit confused before beginning to eat. Serena and Percy regretted not listening to Sharpener's advice as they were quickly covered in flying crumbs. I see what you're saying, Serena trailed off as she tried to suppress her anger. That hit the spot, Gohan said only a minute later. You're already done. Percy almost yelled. Yep, but I'm still hungry, Gohan trailed off as the all-too-familiar beeping of Vital's watch went off. Vital quickly pressed the intercom button. Yes, Sheriff, Vital here. Why is she talking to her watch? Serena asked, getting the idea that she was crazy until the watch replied. Thank goodness you answered. An entire elementary school is being held captive by a gang called the Assassin's Gang. They're threatening to blow up the entire building if we don't bring them 10 million zenny. Alright. Sayuman and I are on the way. Vital reassured the sheriff before jumping out of her seat. Can you guys cover for us while we're gone? When you say us, you mean you're taking the nerd with you again. Hey, he's not a nerd. Come on Gohan, we better hurry. Gohan quickly got up and ran into the school building. Serena and Percy watched them with much confusion. Where did they go? Didn't you hear? They're going to save the kids at the elementary school. Percy's eyes fell wide open in shock as he couldn't imagine those two fighting anyone besides themselves, especially Gohan. Isn't that dangerous? Not for Vital, that is. She's the daughter of Mr. Satan. I'm just a little worried about Gohan. Who's Mr. Satan? Serena asked, obviously not very interested in the conversation at hand. Uraza and Sharpener nearly fell out of their seats anime style. You mean you don't know who Mr. Satan is? Uraza said in an unconvinced tone. He saved us all from that killer android cell. Some say that Vital is actually stronger than her father now. Serena and Percy looked at each other with the same thought. She could just be the one they were looking for. Yay! Godin shouted as he flew around and about the city at a dangerous speed. Newspapers, garbage, and even some trees blew widely around as the small child flew around for his own amusement. Mom never said where I could play at. He laughed with his pure happy laughter that could make anyone happy. Nothing could have stopped him from having his fun. Almost nothing. Help me, please. I can't get out. Godin stopped immediately where he was and looked around for who was pleading for help. Help. Godin finally pinpointed where it was coming from and quickly went down the block to see a small red brick school. Inside the gate of what looked like the playground, a small boy about the same age as Godin was trying to climb the fence as fearful tears fell from his feeble eyes. Godin ran on over to the gate as fast as he could, accidentally frightening the small child as he fell on his back. "What's wrong?" Godin asked as the boy slowly looked back on up at him. No matter how badly Godin scared him, something else was frightening him even more. Please get me out of here, before they come back." Godin looked up at the scaling fence before quickly scrambling over it and landing gracefully next to him. "Before who comes back?" "Hey you kids!" An angered voice shouted from behind them. "They caught us!" The boy cried and tried to climb the fence again. The man pulled out his rifle and aimed it right at the two small boys. "Come with me or I'll shoot you." Godin looked at him rather curiously. "Why do you have a gun on school property?" The shocked man nearly dropped his gun when he heard the 7-year-old use such big words for his age. Just to him. "'Cause I can." "Now stop fooling around and get back in the building." "I think you're lying, sir. I may be home-schooled, but I'm sure that no one is allowed to have weapons near it. So I suggest you leave or I'll tell my big brother on you," Godin threatened, but still had a smile on his happy yet confused face. "So you're going to tell your big brother on me, eh?" He laughed. "Stop fooling around and get inside or I'll kill you both." "Killing is a bad thing. If I were you, I would refrain from attempting to try it," Godin said, still with a confused expression as he didn't understand the situation. The little boy on the ground had enough and stood up slowly. "Come on, man. Let's do what he says. I don't wanna die." "Die? Why would you die?" He trailed off as the little boy dragged Godin inside the building. The man following close behind, still trying to figure out if Godin was in special ed or something. "So where is this elementary school at again?" Gohan asked as he was now in his Saiyaman disguise, but had the bandana on instead of his ridiculous helmet and without his red cape. "Sorry great Saiyaman lovers, but I can't stand Gohan when he's Saiyaman. It's about 5 minutes away if we keep this pace up, but 3 if we fly faster." "You can fly faster, right?" Vidal asked while holding her hand out to try and block some of the wind from getting in her eyes. "Are you kidding?" "Of course I can. I wasn't sure if you could." "All right then, let's fly at top speed," Vidal ordered as she took off. "Okay then," he said to himself before doing what he was told. In less than a minute, he passed Vidal and arrived at the red-bricked elementary school where cops were stationed outside. "Hey, where'd Vidal go?" he asked himself as he looked on behind him. Just in the distance, he could see a small dot coming towards him. "Great, looks like I'm in for an earful this time." "Does Vidal have powers?" Percy asked in a lowered voice. Scherpner and Eraza looked at each other before laughing. "Of course not. There's no such thing as powers." "Then how is she expecting to save all the kids?" Serena asked, getting worried. She loved little children and knowing that they were in danger frightened her so, a motherly instinct kicking in. "She can do it. She's a master of the martial arts." Martial arts, that's what worries me." Godin looked at his surroundings to see that the school was actually large on the inside. It had about over 15 classrooms, with each being as large as an average-sized living room. As they passed on by the empty classrooms, Godin didn't see any kids or adults around, but as he didn't understand the real danger he was in, he shrugged it off. They came to an abrupt stop in front of a rather large door that had a sign reading, "Electrical Room." "Why are we at the electrical room?" Godin asked as the door swung open rather aggressively. A chubby man with greasy black hair wearing brown baggy pants and a red striped shirt appeared in the doorway. He had an old-fashioned cigar in his mouth as an evil grin appeared on his cracked lips. He chuckled mercilessly and scared the boy that Godin was with to the point where he was crying. Godin looked at him sadly before he looked back up at the man. "Can you please stop looking too dull? You're scaring my friend," Godin asked kindly. The man laughed even harder at this as he didn't rightfully hear everything Godin said. "You should be scared too, little boy. We can kill you in an instant if we wanted to." He leaned on down and was a foot away from Godin's face. The smoke from the cigarette made Godin gauge as he coughed violently. "Get your stinky breath away from me. It's worse than my friend Toto's breath. And he's a dinosaur." The man became aggravated at what the boy was saying. "And when was the last time your mom made you take a bath? Ew. You've got some nerve, you little brat," he growled as he grabbed his gun out of the holster and aimed it right at the still coughing 7-year-old boy. "Stop it. He's just a child. He doesn't know any better," a frail female voice pleaded. Obviously a teacher. The man muttered something about misbehaving children before putting his gun away. Roger, throw them with the rest of the trash. Yes, Larry. Godin's coughs turned into laughter after hearing their names. Roger? Larry? Those are lame names, he said between breaths. This irritated them both, but Roger just pushed them both in. Godin, however, didn't notice as he was still laughing. We'll be right back. If any of you try to escape, you all die. Understand? He looked down at the still laughing Godin. And someone shut that kid up, he finished before slamming the door shut. Godin's friend stopped crying as he heard the still laughing Godin and became somewhat at ease. Same with everyone else. Even though they had never seen this boy in their life, his carefree spirit could be felt a mile away. Gohan! Vidal screamed, causing the cops below to look up and see them. Gohan placed his hand behind his head and laughed nervously, something that his father, brother, and himself were especially known for. Vidal's rioting lecture was long forgotten at the sight of him as she blushed. Let's just go and save the kids, she then landed and ran to the cops. Gohan shrugged and followed suit. All the police were staring at her with much shock as they still couldn't get used to the idea of someone being able to fly. The sheriff, however, was the only one that seemed to gain his composure. You guys made it just in time. They're giving us 15 minutes to get the 10 million zeni before they blow up the whole school. Any idea where the children are being kept at? Sayuman asked as he felt a familiar power reading inside the building. Is Godin in there? He mused to himself. Nah, he wouldn't leave the house without Mom, he concluded as turned his attention back to Vidal and the county sheriff, unaware of the two pairs of eyes that watched them. The golden boy. Godin's laughter soon diminished as he began to feel lightheaded from laughing so much and sat up. I don't know about you, but those men crack me up, Godin said, only to gasp at how many people there were in the small cramped room. They all seemed to be children besides one woman who looked about 23 years old. Why is everyone in one room? He asked curiously. The women looked at him weirdly. You don't go to this school, do you? Godin shook his head. I'm homeschooled. I was passing by when I heard my new friend crying for help. He turned to the boy with red-orange hair. Why were you crying for help anyway? Are the men trying to hurt you guys? Godin asked as he was beginning to understand what was going on. Yeah, they're going to kill us unless the police bring them 10 million zeni. The teacher began. What's your name, young man? My name's Godin. What's yours? He asked, leaving the saddening voice behind him. My name is Meg. I'm the librarian at this school. Where did all the other adults go? Meg looked down with tearful eyes. They separated us. I don't know where they took the others, but they're probably safe. But no matter how hard she tried to say that with a positive attitude, Godin could tell that she was lying. Why don't we just leave and escape now then? Because they have bombs wired all over this place. When they realize that we left the room, they'll blow up the entire building, one of the little kids said. And they have big guns. Another shaky voice cried out. Godin knew that he could get them out with ease, but knowing there were bombs made him think twice. He could survive it with ease, but everyone else couldn't. Do any of you have a cell phone? Meg shook her head. They took all the cell phones and broke them. There has to be a way to let my brother know that we're here. Why am I always stuck with trying to find the people held captive? Vidal asked herself as she hid behind a corner. I could take them down as fast as Gohan. This is so unfair. She peeked around the corner to see that it was clear and made a beeline for it. On the other side of the school, Gohan Sayuman quietly ran about the building. He had taken the task to find the people that were behind this and take them down. He would have traded spots with Vidal, but once he figured out that there were bombs placed about the building, he didn't want to take a chance. Serena and Percy remained on the building's roof, watching and waiting. Waiting though was becoming increasingly harder as they both knew the 15 minutes were ticking away and only 8 minutes remained. They hadn't even seen a sign that they had found the children yet. I think we should go and help them, Serena whispered as she wasn't sure how Percy would react. Percy, however, remained still and kept his gaze forward. Wait a few more minutes. If they aren't done by the time they have 5 minutes left, we'll move in. Vidal turned the corner and was about to pass up a closed door when she heard someone moving about inside. She placed her ear against the door as she could still hear the movement before slightly opening the door. Godin spun around as the door opened behind him and Larry was in the doorway, gun loaded and ready to shoot someone. All right. Who called the cops? He asked grumpily. No one answered as they didn't know what he was talking about. He growled. I know one of you called because I just found one of my gang members unconscious in one of your classrooms. Who has the damn cell phone? He yelled in a more demanding voice. Godin glared at the man. Why are you accusing us? You already took and destroyed all of their cell phones. That's not right. Larry looked at the boy in furious anger. He was fed up with his smart-alike remarks. That's when the thought hit him. You in the orange. It was either you or your red-haired friend that called for help. We never searched you for phones. Even if we did have one, it would make no difference. There are cops out in the front anyway. Maybe they have one of those FBI guys here. Vidal had successfully knocked out one of the gang members, but he wasn't the one that had the bomb switch and was trying to track down another when she heard two voices having a rather harsh conversation. That's it. You're dead. He yelled as he aimed the gun right at Godin. Vidal heard him say that and ran towards him, but she didn't make it in time. He shot the gun. Everyone closed their eyes in fear as they couldn't watch. But when they didn't hear a thud, they uncovered their eyes. What they saw made them go wide-eyed in shock. There they saw Godin with an outstretched arm. Something in his closed fists. Larry's face paled a bit as Godin allowed the bullet to fall to the ground. He then looked up at the man in a confused face. Come on. Stop fooling around and actually try. He trailed off. Larry was about to pull the trigger again when someone tackled him to the ground. Oh no you don't, Vidal yelled as she punched him unconscious. Godin's smile widened. Hey Vidal. Vidal looked down into the electrical room and at the demi-sane startled. What in the world are you doing here? I wanted to help, but man, I wasn't expecting these guys to be so weak. Vidal laughed nervously as she saw the bullet on the ground. You caught it, didn't you? Yep. Godin said proudly. It was going way too slow, I couldn't resist. He trailed off as he heard people whispering behind him. Vidal rolled her eyes. Saiyans, I'll never understand them. Her thoughts trailed off as she noticed the others in the room. Is everyone okay in here? Vidal asked as she took out a flashlight to shed some more light into the poorly lit room. There she saw what looked like about 120 kids and one adult in the whole room. Yes, thanks to you. But did you take care of his other friends? Vidal looked at them blankly. Friends? The teacher's face paled. Once they find out their leader was knocked unconscious, they'll blow up the school. That's if my friend doesn't find them before they figure out. My brother's here. Vidal nodded. Yay, I'm gonna go help him, Godin said before running up the stairs. Huh? Godin. Godin looked on back down at the others. Yeah. It's too dangerous. Let your brother handle this. I need your help anyway. I can do whatever Gohan can. Godin retorted in an annoyed voice. He didn't like being treated like he was a 2-year-old. Godin. You better listen to me or I'll tell your mom where you were today. Godin's face cringed in fear. You wouldn't. Try me, man. Gohan was right. You're just like mom. Vidal's face reddened. What did you just say? All the kids in the room watched the two argue back and forth, trying to hold back their laughter. Nothing, Godin muttered before slowly going back down the steps. Now do we go in? Yeah, but be careful, we don't know what we're dealing with. Gohan had just finished taking care of the third person he saw and locked their unconscious form in a nearby classroom. Only 3 more to go, he reminded himself before running off to find the remaining gang members. Serena walked aimlessly around the school only to realize she lost her way. Now where am I? Man, why couldn't I just had stayed with Percy? She asked herself while trying to figure out what way she needed to go. She continued her search unaware of the silent footsteps that were following her. Behind you. Serena froze immediately at the voice. Who are you? She waited for a reply, but all she heard was another instruction. Shatter the glass window of the classroom and throw a piece directly behind you. What? Who's in my head? She called. When no one replied, she remembered what Percy and Annabeth had told her about how their parents helped them in dire situations. Was that my mom? She pondered before deciding to do what she was told. She took out her slingshot Grover had given her the day she got there and shot a rock at the window. It shattered almost immediately and the soft footsteps became louder and more urgent. She turned to see a man in black jeans and a green t-shirt pull out his gun and took his best shot. Her whole body was frozen as the bullet got nearer. She didn't know what to do, but before she realized it, she grabbed a rather big piece of the glass and threw it at the bullet, hitting it head-on. It changed its trajectory instantly. Did I just do that? She asked herself as she snapped back into reality. You little brat. The man yelled as he aimed his gun again, but before the shooter could try to shoot her again, Serena dived for the shattered glass and closed her eyes. Without noticing, she randomly picked up a shard and threw it at the incoming threat. When seconds passed, the footsteps had ceased. Opening her eyes, she saw that she had pierced him right in the heart. Did I do that? Her thoughts were cut short as she heard another gun going off somewhere not too far from her. She debated with herself whether to go and help the person and looked back down at the glass she had used before. She could see her reflection in the shattered mess below her, and yet, she thought she looked different. She didn't know what it was, but something within her seemed to awaken. I have to help them, she told herself before quickly grabbing a few shards and taking off. Percy had barely managed to dodge all the bullets that came his way as he tried to find any source of water nearby. Unfortunately for him, the only water fountain near him was cut off and out of order. Whatever he was going to do, he needed to do it without using his powers. I don't know how a brat like you got in here, but I'll make sure that you're dealt with quickly, the man chuckled as he shot at Percy once again. Percy barely had time to dodge and got cornered. He tried to look for an escape route, but there was no way he could escape. The man advanced on him and aimed the gun at him one more time. Say goodbye, he trailed off into laughter. Percy closed his eyes and tried to summon up his hidden powers. But they weren't responding to him as the man aimed the gun up one last time. Percy! Serena yelled as she saw the scene. Percy heard Serena scream his name, but kept his eyes shut. Sorry, Serena. Serena took one of the shards she had and angrily threw it at the gang member. The man's laughs all of a sudden turned into violent coughs as he tumbled forward. Percy opened up his terrified sea-blue eyes to see the glass that had pierced the gang member's heart. He looked up at Serena as the lifeless body fell to see that she still had another piece ready. Wow. I'm glad you're not mad at me anymore, Percy said, trying to make his breaths normal again. Who said I'm not? Percy laughed nervously at this. On the other side of the school, however, there was one more person on the loose. Someone who possessed the bomb trigger. Godin watched the line of 123 children from the back while Vidal led and protected them from the front. They were trying to make it out the front doors so that the children could be in the safe hands of the police. This, however, was more difficult than they had originally thought it would be. The quickest and easy ways were all blocked off by filing cabinets and desks. They would have moved them, but they didn't want to make a big confrontation. Vidal sighed. She had no idea how to get all these kids out of the building in time. All the ways to the outside were blocked, and if they didn't want to stir the last person who possibly possessed the bomb remote, they had to continue to be as silent as they could. Unknown to them, however, the last person was hot on their trail. He wanted to blow the entire building up already, but he wanted to kill the person that helped the children escape himself. He stealthily walked around a corner to hear the sound of many footsteps. Found them. He trailed off before seeing all the kids leaning against a wall. Obviously not seeing him. Now who was behind this? Hey Vidal, I'm getting hungry. Are we almost there? Godin asked as his stomach growled loudly. The man looked at him closely to recognize him as one of the last kids they found. But unlike all the rest, this one gave them all problems. Shush. Do you want them to find us? No, then shut up. But I'm hungry. Man, Godin. I'm starting to wonder who's worse, you or your brother. Godin laughed. You forgot Trunk. Bang. Vidal quickly turned as she heard the gun go off. All the color drained from her face as she saw Godin hit the ground unmoving. You monster, she said as she looked up angrily from the 7-year-old that was shot in the head. That was my friend you killed. She screamed with tears and began to charge the laughing man. He quickly took out the bomb trigger and made sure Vidal saw it. She froze where she was immediately. Move and I'll kill us all. He chuckled evilly. Vidal looked at Godin again before back at the man with anger flaring out of her eyes. She wanted to revenge her boyfriend's brother, but doing so would cause more harm than good. The man was laughing uncontrollably. Vidal scowled at him as she was trying to think of a way she could relieve him from the trigger. She didn't have to think about it that long as his eyes fell closed. The button in his hand quickly disappeared as his body fell unconscious. What the? She stopped herself as she saw Gohan right behind, holding the trigger tightly. Vidal smiled at him before remembering about Godin and quickly ran to his side. Gohan watched Vidal, wondering where she is going when he finally saw his brother. Godin! He yelled and kneeled down to him as well. Serena and Percy stayed hidden inside one of the classrooms and watched through the glass window, trying to hold back tears. What happened, Vidal? Godin got shot in the head. Why in the world was he here in the first place? The little boy that befriended the innocent Saiyan stepped forward. He came to help us, I asked him to. Gohan turned to the saddened red-headed boy. It's my fault, I shouldn't have asked him for help. It's ... Vidal turned back to Godin as she couldn't believe what she just heard. Your fault, Godin weakly stated as he tried to sit up, but found that his energy was drained and he was extremely lightheaded. Everyone went blue in the face as they couldn't believe their eyes. Percy watched him with much interest as he knew that the bullet would have killed him. Serena on the other hand had an unreadable expression. But those who knew her well could tell she was relieved. How are you still alive? Not to sound mean or anything, Vidal asked. Gohan laughed. We don't get killed by your guys' weapons, remember? To us, it either feels like you're trying to tickle us or punch us really hard. It felt like I was hit by Broly. I can't ever forget how much that hurt being punched by that guy. Gohan and Vidal laughed at the comment as they recalled that battle. Let's get everyone out of here and go home. Squirt? Godin weakly nodded as he leaned against the wall behind him. You can cover me for the rest of the school day, right? Sure, no prob. Vidal winked. Okay, Squirt, hop on. Godin slowly hopped in his brother's back and hung on tightly. Everyone, please clear the area. He trailed off as everyone quickly moved. Gohan then began to power up a bit before he used his energy to manipulate the air to move the furniture out of the way. Everything soon went flying. Vidal even had to push some people out of the way to avoid them being crushed. Percy and Serena, however, didn't hear his warning, and when a desk came flying towards them, they weren't prepared. Move! Percy yelled and pushed the elegant Serena out of the way of the incoming desk. She got out of the way in time, but Percy didn't get a chance to move. Percy! She yelled. The others outside obviously didn't hear them as they quickly exited the building. Serena got up and quickly ran on over to where Percy was to see that his foot looked completely crushed. Percy, please say something, she cried, but he was unconscious. The police soon swarmed in and she stayed as quiet as possible. She could still move around without them seeing her since the room they were in was now sealed off from the furniture that was piled up against the front doors. But she kinda wanted to be caught. If they could save Percy, that would mean the world to her, but she knew better. They weren't from that planet and would surely be taken in to be questioned until they were placed in the crazy house or worse, to be examined by scientists. She sat slouched against the wall. Why did you have to push me out of the way? You're such an idiot. She cried into her arms that sat on her knees. She hated crying and she hoped that no one would see her. What would she do now? Percy was out cold and badly hurt, not to mention they would surely be discovered sooner or later. These thoughts made her cry even harder as she remembered how she had to leave everything she loved just to be safe at Camp Half-Blood. They remained in there for what seemed like hours. She began to lose all faith until a small warm golden light filled the room as it gave off a gentle breeze. Serena slowly looked up as the breeze blew her tears away and looked at the light with a shocked face. It slowly began to take form into what looked like a 14-year-old boy wearing green baggy capris with a white and red t-shirt. She could tell that this was a transformation as he seemed bold and calm. He smiled sweetly at her before kneeling down to the demigod Percy, obviously observing his injuries. Serena wanted to ask him what he was doing, but she couldn't find her voice. The boy placed one hand on Percy's back and soon, a small light, like when Dent heals people, outlined Percy. He continued to do that as his injuries started to go away. Serena gasped in shock before he pulled his hand back. The sweet innocent blue eyes looked back at Serena and smiled. He'll be just fine now, he trailed off as he got back up. Do you need help getting out? Serena looked at the barricaded door and back at the still glowing boy. He took the hint and stared at the mess before it began to move silently aside until the doorway was uncovered. Who are you? She whispered as she hardly managed to speak. I'm a friend, and we'll meet again, he trailed off as he smiled one last time before slowly fading away. Wait, Serena cried out, but it was too late, he was gone. She sighed before going over to Percy and picking him up, dragging him all the way to their apartment they were staying at. Let's just say that Godin was in a whole lot of trouble after his mother stopped crying over what could have happened if he was a normal child. But then again, when are they ever normal? Gohan sat back in his chair and stared down at his sleeping brother. He couldn't believe that his brother was shot in the head, all because he didn't take more caution about the situation they were in. Just think about it, if he didn't inherit his father's Saiyan genes, Goku would be meeting Godin for the first time in the other world. He shook his head at the thought. No, he shouldn't dwell on what could have happened. He needed to worry about what was still going on. He knew darn well that someone had helped them. He didn't know who or why, all he knew was that they had 2 new allies. And he was so excited to find out who they were. Serena had made it back to the apartment over an hour ago and still waited for Percy to gain consciousness again. She still couldn't believe what happened. The bright light, the golden-haired boy, and how he moved things without even touching them. Could he be a demigod? She asked herself as she looked up at the ceiling. Man, I wish Percy and Annabeth had never found me in the first place. I miss my family and friends already. Her thoughts trailed off as she recalled that fateful day. Serena. Wait up for me. You're going too fast. Her friend Kendall pleaded as Serena bolted down the stairs. Kendall was a short brown-haired girl who was probably the most innocent yet weird girl in the entire school. She wore purple glasses and an outfit that never matched. Serena. Don't make me call you by the name you don't like. Serena glanced back as she was deciding to glare at her or not. She didn't like the name she called her and wanted to punch her each time she brought it up. But no matter how mad she got, she could never bring herself to do. However, there was this one time when she took a picture of her and this guy she liked. She always thought it was because of her carefree nature, but she would soon realize the real reason soon. Something grasped the strap of her shoulder backpack and she snapped out of her thoughts. Serena turned into her annoyance. She saw the brown-haired girl smiling up at her. Damn it, Belver. Let go of my bag, she snapped. Kendall just laughed before realizing she said the D word. Serena. Watch your language, she snapped back. What? It's not a bad word, Serena retorted. That's another thing she was always annoyed with by Kendall. She couldn't stand anyone cussing, and when they did, she snapped at them. It is to me. It's mean to say words like that. It hurts their feelings. Serena rolled her eyes before they came to the part of the hall they had to separate. Well, see you at lunch, Serena said before prying Kendall's hand off of her bag. Don't kill anyone at PE. Serena heard her yell before running off to the gym. Kendall waved one last time before her smile vanished and walked alertly. Her eyes shifted back and forth as she knew something was going to happen today, something bad. Serena walked into the locker room and quickly got change. Her friends were all laughing merrily at random comments that were made before the coach walked in. Ladies, you have about 2 minutes. Serena quickly walked out into the large gym to see that they were playing indoor softball. She smirked. This was her favorite sport. The rest of the class soon reported to the gym and did their warm-ups in less than 5 minutes. The coach had already gotten the bases and bats ready and they quickly lined up on the black line. Okay. Today we're going to separate into 2 different teams. Each person will have to bat once and each person will have to pitch once, is that clear? She said with distaste in her mouth. And you better try your best or you'll be in the weight room for the rest of the day. She trailed off before numbering people off. Serena was in Group 1 along with one of the new kids she hadn't got to talk to yet. She had only been here for about a week now, but something about her made Serena feel uneasy. She didn't know what it was, but the new girl seemed to always be staring at her, observing her closely, in other words. Annabeth, the coach called to the new girl. You'll be the first to bat. The new girl. Annabeth secretly gave the coach a death glare before taking the plate and picking up the bat. Serena, you'll be the second one to bat. Serena looked at the coach as she believed she had done that on purpose. The second team quickly took their places and Brianna, Serena's friend, pitched the ball at Annabeth. It seemed like the ball was impossible to hit, but Annabeth hurled the bat and hit the incoming ball 10 times harder than she had thrown it and it whizzed on by the other team's head and hit the wall at amazing speeds. No one else had seen what just happened and stared at the ball behind them with paled faces. Serena on the other hand had seen the whole thing as if it was in slow motion and stared back at Annabeth, who was smiling at the shock written on the others' faces. Who is this girl? Gym soon ended and Serena was waiting for Kendall outside the cafeteria. She still couldn't make sense of what had happened earlier and was still in deep thought about it. She didn't even notice the two that watched her secretly from across the way. Watching, protecting. Serena. Serena snapped out of her thoughts as she saw the Kendall walk up to her. Please tell me you're eating today. I remembered my money. She smiled back. Kendall's face lit up immediately. The smallest things always made her happy, but what Serena didn't notice was her glance as she turned to the two new kids behind them. She knew what was coming, and if Serena didn't know any better, you'd say that she was involved in all this mess. They soon found themselves waiting in the pizza line. Kendall trying to calm Serena down as she wanted to punch everyone who cut it in front of them. Serena. Behave yourself. Kendall scowled. Serena held back her urge to hurt anyone as she didn't want to make her friend any angrier at her than she already was. They soon made it out of the pizza line and scurried on outside. They headed to their usual table when someone bumped into Kendall, causing her food to fall on her. Serena looked up and glared at the ugly fat senior that was laughing at the mess. I'm so sorry, I wasn't watching where I was going. Serena quickly turned to her friend in disbelief. What? It's not your freakin' FA. She cut herself off as she saw the serious yet sad expression written on Kendall's face. Once again, I'm sorry. Come on Serena, let's go. Serena wanted to protest as she wanted to knock the living daylights out of the guy, but Kendall pulled her away. I can't believe you, Serena snapped as she couldn't stand people being mean to her friends. Kendall didn't say anything as they maneuvered around their usual table and to the side of the gym where no one was at. Serena looked around curiously as she didn't understand why they were there. Why are we here? We're waiting for someone. Serena sighed in annoyance. Why? Are you better not be planning on me meeting you no WHO? Cause if you were all... Serena was cut off yet again as Kendall dragged Serena into the gym and forced the door shut. She held it there as if someone was trying to get in. Serena, run. She squeaked. What? Why? What are we running from? A bang from the door was her answer as Kendall kept trying to keep it closed, but struggling. She turned to Serena with teary eyes. Please, just go and hide. Wait for my friends to get here. Don't trust anyone else, not even a teacher. What? But, just go. Kendall shouted this time as something on the door banged on it yet again, but harder this time. Serena began running and looked back one last time at her friend, not knowing that that was probably the last time she would ever see her. She turned and entered the big gym where she had PE earlier. She would have tried to find a weapon of some sort, but she didn't have time as she heard a loud explosion and something big running down the hall. Serena looked around frantically before diving under the bleachers just in the nick of time. A moment later passed when the doors went flying across the room and a tall hairy thing entered the room. Serena went wide-eyed at the scaling creature as her heart nearly skipped a few beats. The beast sniffed the air around him as it tried to find the frightened Serena. It turned every other minute until it finally faced the bleachers, obviously knowing instantly that it had found its prey. Serena could do nothing but stare at it, scared to death as she glued her eyes shut. Hey, over here you big tug of lard, Serena heard a familiar voice yell. The beast turned only to be hit in the eye with an arrow. Now Percy. Serena opened her eyes to see a huge wave of water rush into the room and smash the creature into the wall, causing half the roof to collapse on the beast. She then looked at the others in the room and immediately knew one of them was Annabeth. Annabeth? What in the world is she doing here? And how did she do whatever she did? Serena mused to herself. What did you do that for, Percy? Annabeth growled. You nearly destroyed the entire building. What? But you told me to do something. Annabeth rolled her eyes. She didn't want to deal with him for the moment and walked towards the bleachers. Percy rolled his eyes before following her. Serena, you can come out now, you're safe. Serena looked at the creature before cautiously crawling out from underneath the bleachers. How do you know I was here? She snapped as she didn't like the way Annabeth was talking. Kendall told us to meet you guys in here. But where's Kendall? Serena looked back at the hallway with widened eyes. She was holding the door shut for me. Annabeth and Percy looked at each other solemnly. We didn't see anyone besides you. Serena didn't want to believe it and dashed back into the hallway to see that the doors were forced open. But her friend was nowhere in sight. She clenched her fists in anger. Annabeth and Percy went up behind Serena, hiding the sadness they also felt. Percy placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Look, we've gotta go unless you'll have another one of those creatures trailing after you. Serena looked at his hand before quickly smacking it away. Don't ever touch me, she said sourly. Look here, Missy. We have to leave now or the whole school will end up like your friend. Serena turned to her with fiery in her eyes. Look, I know how you're feeling. I've known her for a long time too, but we have to go now. Serena suppressed her anger. Where? To a camp where you can be safe. Your PE coach sent us here. Serena? Serena snapped out of her thoughts and quickly turned to the half-awake Percy. Percy. You're awake. I mean, how you feelin'? She asked as she tried to hide her blush from him. I'm feeling all right. How'd we get back here? Well, it's kinda a long story. To sum it up, we got stuck in the building, a boy came to save us, and I dragged you here. Wait a minute, a boy? What did he look like? Percy asked, wondering if this boy was his old friend. Well, he had golden brown blonde hair, wearing green baggy pants and Chris. Serena looked at Percy curiously. You know him? Percy nodded. Then he's a demigod, right? Not exactly. Look, I'll explain later. Did the kids make it out safe? Yeah, but that goofy-looking guy made the desk hit you. He might be an enemy. I wouldn't say that, Percy replied as he slowly sat up. Serena glared at him. What are you talking about? He made the desk hit you, aren't you the least bit mad? Nope, it was by accident. Serena wanted to pull her hair out. He acted just like her friends sometimes. By the time Chi-Chi woke up, she found Gohan had already woken up and left for school. She was glad, even though she was upset he didn't say bye. It was the first time he actually went to school early. I bet he's going to hang out with Vidal, she trailed off into a chuckle. I guess as long as he's happy, I'm happy. Mom. She heard Goten whine. What is it, sweetie? She asked before looking out the window where her son was. But paled in fright. Their Goten was riding on a 3-story high monster, with closed dark red wings that could stretch to at least a whole football field. Its teeth were huge and sharp as knife. Goten, she stuttered as she didn't know what to think of the situation. Look, Mama. I made a new friend, he chimed off into laughter. I named him Charlie. Friend? Charlie? Goten smiled even happier. Yep. Chi-Chi slowly made her way out of the house. Are you sure that thing is friendly? She asked as she couldn't start to fathom what she would do if her son was hurt or even killed. He and Gohan were all she had left since Goku died. Yeah, I'm sure. The dragon looked up at the small boy with its beautiful sparkling scarlet eyes. Chi-Chi noticed this notion and sighed. Goten quickly hopped off Charlie and ran up to his mom. Can we keep him? Please say yes, Mama. Please. I'll play and take care of him every day, I promise. Chi-Chi studied the large dragon before looking at Goten again. He reminded her so much of his father that there was no way she could say no. Even if it was to this huge dragon, you know, when your brother was young he asked if we could keep Icarus. Me. Being as overprotective as I am. I said no, Goten looked down sadly. But your father, like always, went behind my back as he knew what was best and let Gohan keep him. Goten looked at his mother happily again as he knew where this was going. Chi-Chi smiled at this. So yes, as long as you keep up with your studies and training, you can keep him. Really? Chi-Chi nodded before Goten gave his mother a hug. Chi-Chi tried to breathe, but found it hard as Goten's grip was tighter than she expected it to be. She didn't complain though as he quickly flew off onto Charlie's back. Laughing all the way. Let's go see Todo and Chobi, he exclaimed before the dragon took off quickly into the air, leaving Chi-Chi with regrets. So Vidal, how'd everything go with the elementary school? Uraza asked as they walked on to their second-hour class with Gohan and Sherpner trailing behind. They would be up by the girls, but they didn't want to listen to all the gossip that was going around. At least that's why Gohan stayed behind. Sherpner on the other hand stayed behind because it gave him more time to search for the new girl Serena. It went quite well actually. I knocked out the leader of the gang and some other idiots while Gohan took down even more idiots and the one with the bomb trigger. She laughed. I can't believe how low these filthy crocs are getting nowadays. Holding children hostage, HMPH. Gohan had been staring off into space as he still couldn't figure out who had helped them yesterday. Usually he wouldn't care much, but for some reason, he felt like they needed help. He couldn't explain why he felt this way, but whenever the feeling came, it was always right. I guess I get it from my dad, he told himself as he looked up into the sky. He really missed Goku. After all, he was dead because Gohan became too arrogant with his newfound powers and didn't finish Cell off when he had a chance. He sighed. Man, I wish I could relive that day, father. Maybe I could have saved you like I saved the Earth. Gohan. Are you going deaf or something? Vidal snapped. Apparently she had been calling his name for the past few minutes when he was drifting off in his own thoughts again. He always did. Oh, sorry Vidal, I wasn't paying attention. A monkey could have guessed that. Now back to my original question. Did you hear about the field trip we're going on all of next week? Gohan looked at Vidal dumbfounded. Their school never went on field trips, especially since they were in high school. He knew that there had to be a dire importance to this change. No, I didn't think we did go anywhere. Vidal smirked. Well, I guess you can thank my father for it. He's the one that convinced the principal in any case. What? You're kidding. How'd he do that? Well, I was talking to him about how we never did anything fun in school and he came up with this week-long schedule with a few other people. Hey look. There's that girl Vidal. Percy suddenly injected into their current conversation. Serena glared at him before forgiving him for changing the subject as they both joined their little group huddle. They were going to make themselves known, but the discussion they were having made them intrigued. Monday, we're going to a science center that gets us involved in all these virtual programs and crap like that. Serena silently giggled at this. The last time she went to a science center it was really lame, but she got in a lot of trouble with her friends. Then on Tuesday, we're going to a water resort sponsored by the Satan Gym. Dad had a hard time convincing the principal to let us go, but somehow he said yes. On Wednesday, we'll be going to some weird place deep in a forest called Korin's Tower. Gohan's eyes went wide at the name. Korin's Tower? Oh man. Upa and his father will flip once they find out about this. It'll be nice to see them again. Gohan mused to himself as he tuned back in. Then on Thursday we're going to Capsule Corp to have a lesson taught by Bulma Briefs herself. Gohan flinched a bit. Bulma's? Does she realize what Vegeta will do once he sees a bunch of kids in his house? Oh man. Trunks will notice me too. He trailed off. What fun. Then on Friday, we're going to the place where they held the Cell games while my father teaches us ways to defend ourselves. Vidal finished as she smiled widely. What? No, not to that dreaded place, Gohan sadly said to himself. Even though the Cell games were over 7 years ago, he could swear the wounds still burned and ached every now and then as if it was a reminder to himself of what a fool he was at being so arrogant with his new transformation. He could remember it only faintly now. But his father's last words echoed through his mind like a broken record. I'm proud of you Gohan. Take care of your mother while I'm gone. Gohan. Gohan snapped out of his thoughts again to see everyone staring at him with worried eyes, with the exception of Serena and Percy who were still trying to figure out who this Bulma character was. She seemed pretty important on this planet, and they just had to find out why. Serena turned to the proud Vidal. Who's Bulma? Vidal's eyes went wide at the question as she quickly spun around. You've never heard of Bulma? Are you living under a rock or something? Serena scowled at this. She hated it when people talked to her with that kind of tone. Hey! Don't you even dare get snappy with me. Both Percy's and Gohan's face paled a bit. Oh no, they both trailed off as Vidal exploded in anger. What was that? Serena frowned and rolled up her black jacket sleeves. You heard me, I said you better not get snappy with me women. Serena. Percy screeched in both fear and anger, but it was obvious she didn't hear him. Gohan knew that he needed to calm his girlfriend down before they had to call the nurse to set broken bones for both Serena and Vidal. He could tell that Serena was the kind of person who didn't take crap, excuse my language please, I'm using it to make raining love happy, from anyone. But that was just the thing. Vidal was the same type of person and with both of them arguing like they were, there was bound to be trouble. Maybe we should just apologize and go on with our day. Gohan advised the two hot-headed girls in his sweet childish voice. Oh, so now you're taking her side and not mine? Vidal snapped. Gohan placed his hands in front of him in defense. No, it's not like that at all, it's... Oh shut up. Vidal hollered back. Serena became stern. She may not know him very well, but she knew him enough to get angry at anyone who was being mean to him. Don't tell him to shut up. You're the one that needs to shut up. What? Gohan and Percy looked on nervously as the two girls began walking towards each other. They were about to lock fists when the minute bell rang. Vidal looked up from the fight as she heard everyone running off to their classrooms. This isn't over. We'll settle this some other time. I wouldn't have it any other way. Serena agreed before getting out of her own fighting position. Percy grabbed her arm and dragged her away towards their chemistry class. Gohan grabbed Vidal and dragged her to their PE class where he hoped she could blow off some steam. What in the world did you do that for? Percy began to scold the still infuriated Serena, who seemed to be ignoring him still. You made the only person who can help us angry. Now how are we going to convince her to come and help us? Percy blushed madly as she looked up at him with her beautiful eyes that seemed to shine with happiness even when she was mad. He quickly turned away from her, hoping she hadn't seen how red he was. So, do you want to try our balloon out first? Serena looked at him weirdly. He always changed the subject like this whenever she looked into his beautiful sea-colored eyes. Sure, I'll just imagine it's Vidal and hope it blows up, she said excitedly as she lit the fire. They both watched in awe as the balloon slowly began to float up above their heads. They were surprised it worked since they quickly made it before school that morning. Their smiles, however, soon faded as it quickly caught on fire. Ah! Serena jumped as it came crumbling down towards her. Percy quickly pulled her out of the way as the ball of fire landed on the grass, simmering down into ashes. Serena opened her eyes to notice that Percy still had his hands on her shoulders, obviously memorized in at their destroyed project. She blushed madly before slapping him straight across the face so hard he stumbled a few feet. You perv! Percy rubbed his aching cheek, hoping the throbbing would stop soon. That's what I get for saving you. Well, maybe I didn't want to be saved, jerk, Serena retorted with the blush still present. She was too caught up in the moment that she didn't even realize the blush that Percy was wearing. That girl, I swear, she's gonna get it, Vidal snapped as she was putting on her baseball mitt. Gohan was fixing his shoes as he was beginning to get tired of hearing her say that. Look, Vidal, I don't think you guys should fight over something so unimportant. Vidal quickly turned to Gohan with fire shooting out of her eyes. Gohan moved back a little to give her some space. Unimportant, that ungrateful Ren. She stopped herself as she noticed how sad this was making Gohan. With her anger, she had forgotten about the ones she cared about the most, especially Gohan. She knew he was sad by something especially ever since she had mentioned the field trip they were going to. She sighed. Sorry, Gohan, I didn't mean to get all snappy at you like that. I guess I let my anger get the best of me. Gohan finally began to smile again. He didn't like it when people, especially when two of his friends, were fighting. Does this mean you're not going to fight Serena? I wouldn't say that, but I can say that if she cools down, I'll let it go just this one time. Good, I don't want to start anything. Besides, I don't want you to get hurt. Vidal's sweet face went sour again. Gohan sighed in frustration. This girl gets irritated so easily, she's just like my mother. What? You don't think I would win? She shouted, causing everyone to turn to them. Gohan looked at the others before putting on a fake laugh. Well, of course you could. They're dirty thugs anyway, he said loudly as everyone returned to their own business. What are you talking about? Vidal asked as she wondered why he would change the subject. Shish, I don't want anyone eavesdropping. I don't think you would have a chance because of what I sensed from her earlier. Vidal was finally beginning to understand what he was saying. She seems good and all, but never underestimate anyone, especially the shy and innocent ones. Oh, like you? You're not talking about you, are you? No, I'm talking about my brother. Ring ring ring. The lunch bell went off. Gohan and Vidal quickly headed to their locker rooms before heading over to lunch. Now where's that girl? We still need to finish what we started earlier, Serena rambled on as she searched for Vidal. Percy had tried to convince her not to fight, but it was useless. Serena was too damned stubborn. It was about 2 minutes later when she finally caught sight of Vidal and Gohan walking right up to them. Vidal seemed to be a little less angry, but Serena was still furious. She needed to let out everything that was bottled up inside. I didn't think you were gonna show up, Serena said in distaste. Vidal clenched her fists as she tried to hold back her boiling anger. Why wouldn't I? It's lunchtime, Gohan and Percy had already scooted closer together. You couldn't get through to her? Percy asked Gohan. Kinda, but anything can set her off. What about you? Percy nodded no. Great. He laughed nervously as he prepared to jump in at any time. Well then, Miss Preppy, let's get this over with. Preppy? Okay. Now it's on. Vidal snapped as she threw the first fist at Serena. Serena barely had time to dodge as she didn't think Vidal was that fast. She barely had any time to counteract the incoming punch in the stomach as she threw her own fist at Vidal's head. They both dodged each other's attacks and stared into the other's eyes, still boiling with anger. They were about to start their second wave of attacks when someone jumped on both of their hands that were still in air, knocking them down. Hey! They both yelled and turned. Both their faces paled, but Serena's went almost white. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was her friend, it was. Hey Elena. It's nice to see you again, Gohan hollered from where he was standing. Serena turned to him in question. Elena? What? Wait a minute. Why are you here by yourself? Gohan asked rather worriedly as he looked around, scouting the area. Elena laughed nervously. It's safe, don't worry, I checked a dozen times. Besides, technically I'm with you. Yeah, but who did you come here with? She trailed off before looking down in defeat. No one. Gohan slapped his forehead. What did we tell you about wandering away from others? Man, you're just like my brother. It's not my fault. Everyone was too busy. Besides, I came to check up on Serena. Elena quickly flung her arms around her tall friend. Belver. How? When? Who? She asked confusingly as she had no idea what was going on, but she didn't care at the moment. All she cared about was that her friend was still alive. You, alive. She screeched before pulling Kendall in for another hug. Kendall hugged back before struggling out of her tight grip. Vidal looked at the two friends in shock. What, you know this girl? Elena nodded with a bright smile. Yep, she's my friend. I meet her when I was forced to go to Peck. Vidal looked back at the brown-haired girl with a new perspective. Elena's laughs soon stopped as she stepped away from Serena. Were you fighting? Serena reddened a bit as she knew she was about to hear an earful. It was my fault. Don't yell at her, Elena. Serena turned to Vidal in shock. Did she really take the blame for me? Why did you start a fight? Because I just didn't like her attitude. Elena laughed. She knew well enough to know that these two wouldn't get along. Especially if they hung out for over 2 hours. Elena, Gohan began. Elena looked down again as she slowly turned to him. Great, now I'm gonna get busted. You know you can't be seen here or they'll call the authorities on you. You're not a student here. Elena quickly smirked. Now I am. I signed up this morning. Gohan went wide-eyed at this. Percy just laughed. He knew the ways Elena worked when she wanted her way. The people in the office are probably so confused some went home. Serena still looked at the others dumbfounded. She had so many questions and wondered why they were calling her Elena. Percy seemed to notice her confusion. We'll explain later, Percy laughed nervously. Who? You better, faster Charlie, faster. The young and spirited Goten cried in laughter as they zoomed on by Toto's nest. He had been flying around the forest all day and hadn't stopped once. They covered twice the ground than he would on the Nimbus. This made him wonder if Charlie was even faster than he was. I can't wait for Gohan to get home. He'll be so happy to meet Charlie. He smirked in happiness. This is gonna be so wome. He yelled out as they flew on back home. Everyone sat in silence as they ate. They were still feeling a bit awkward about earlier and hoped that the other wasn't still mad. Kendall on the other hand wasn't worried about them at all. She was just glad that everyone had finally met each other. Hey Gohan, Elena began. Can I stay with you guys till Serena leaves? Please? Gohan stopped eating for a moment and looked on over at Elena with a confused expression. Why would you ask? You're always allowed at my home, remember? I know. But I wanted to double-check just on case. She smiled before taking a drink of her cold raspberry iced tea. Serena was staring at the two eating next to each other as Gohan began eating savagely again. She, along with everyone else, had made sure they were sitting far away from him, but Elena seemed to be perfectly comfortable. Hey, what's up you guys? Eraza asked as she sat down next to Vidal. Sherpner was right behind her but took a seat next to Serena, making sure to flex his muscles as he sat down. Oh no, Elena told herself as she saw Serena beginning to lose her temper. Serena, she warned her. She seemed to calm down a bit as she just continued eating, making sure she didn't look up at him.
Oh hi there Elena. When did you get here? Eraza asked as she finally noticed her old friend. That's it, I can't take this anymore, Serena told herself as she stood up. Everyone looked at her weirdly. Why are you calling her Elena? Her name is Kendall. Gohan laughed nervously. Yeah, we know, but we find it improper to use that name. Serena gave him a look of confusion. He took the hint immediately. She'll explain that when she's ready. Which is not now, Elena said as quickly as if she didn't want anyone to overhear them. Why, but a stern look was her only reply. Is she the one? Yeah, defiantly, two lone figures standing on the roof on a faraway building replied before jumping up and disappearing. Serena looked around the room nervously as she tapped her pencil on the table. The room was dead silent with the exception of her tapping and the moving of other pencils. She tried to get Percy's attention, but he was too far away. Man, why did I forget about the test? She quietly whined to herself. I guess I can try to solve them, but she had to face it. They were taking a math test that was completely written in Japanese. Sure, she could make out what some of the words and symbols were from her demigod side, but it wasn't enough. She sighed in frustration as she glanced at problem number 10. It was completely unreadable. I wonder how Percy's doing. She trailed off as she saw Gohan get up, paper in hand. No way, she tried to convince herself as she watched him as he walked up to the teacher.
Mr. Johnson, the math teacher looked up from his grade book and nearly jumped out of his seat when he saw Gohan. Do you have a question, sir? He asked, trying to regain his composure.
Nope, I came to turn in my test, Gohan replied. The teacher looked at his timer to see that only 10 minutes had passed since he passed out the test. I'm sorry Gohan, but you can't be finished with a 40-question test in only 10 minutes. Please, take a seat and check your work. But sir, I checked my work 3 times already. I don't think I can do any better than I've already have. Mr. Johnson looked at Gohan in disbelief before snatching the test out of his hands.
If you get any wrong, you can't retake it, he said as he looked over Gohan's answers.
I know, he replied as he tried to hold back the urge to laugh at his teacher's face. His eyes were nearly out of his sockets and his face was almost as white as a ghost. Mr. Johnson didn't want to admit it, but Gohan got every single question right. He looked at Gohan with a suspicious eye. This was supposed to be the hardest test I ever gave.
Gohan nodded. There were some problems I struggled with, but I quickly found out what I did wrong. Well, I don't know how, but you got 100, my boy, the first 100 of the year. He trailed off as he didn't understand how this boy could have finished his test with such ease. You can have a free period, I guess. What? He already finished the test. But how? I didn't even learn this in my old school. Serena cried to herself as she looked back down at her paper, trying to at least finish the problem she was on.
Over here, Charlie. Goten called to his friend as he landed in a field of tall grass. The dragon glanced at the place Goten had chosen and found it quite to his liking. There was a beautiful clear blue lake surrounded by lush green grass with squirrels gathering nuts by trees and rabbits scurrying by. It was peaceful. He landed slowly so he wouldn't frighten all the wild animals and folded its wings up so he wouldn't cause too much wind.
But once he was done with that, he noticed Goten had disappeared on him. He looked around frantically as he feared the child got lost or fell in the water, but calmed down as he spotted the goofy-haired boy kneeling down to the water. He rolled his eyes before going over to the Saiyan child sitting right next to the water, lost in his own thoughts. But whatever these thoughts were seemed to sadden him. Charlie couldn't stand seeing him this way and nudged him with his nose.
Goten flinched as he didn't realize it was Charlie at first. You finally made it, Goten said happily before he hugged Charlie's head. But then returned to his saddened look within the water. Charlie nudged him again, trying to let Goten know he wanted to know what was wrong. He seemed to take the hint and sighed. Gohan said that this was Dad's favorite spot in the entire forest. Charlie gazed around as he too understood why this would be the most pleasurable place to be. He used to take Big Brother here every day just to take a nap in the grass before going fishing. I can see why they did though. It's so peaceful here that the animals aren't even afraid to walk up to you, He trailed off as a squirrel jumped on its shoulder and rubbed against his cheek. But then again, animals always walk up to me anyway. Hi Mr. Squirrel. It's nice to meet you. Godin laughed as a few rabbits that knew him and Gohan ran up to him as well. Charlie could hardly believe it. They just climb all over this kid as if he was their best friend and not some human that was trying to kill them. Hey Tony. Hey Layla. Meet my new friend Charlie. The two rabbits shyly looked on over at the dragon as their ears fell to their sides. Obviously nervous. It's okay. He won't hurt you, I promise, he smiled. The two rabbits looked at Godin again before deciding to go over to Charlie. All he did was sniff them before smiling at them. See, I told ya, he laughed again. Charlie studied the child contently as he realized he did indeed have the right child. There was no doubt he was Goku's son.
Buzz buzz buzz, the timer blared. What? But I'm not done, Serena cried as she threw her pencil against the desk.
Mr. Johnson stood up. Okay class, put down your pencils and hand me the test as I come around.
He instructed before he began to pick up the tests. Serena looked on over at Percy who looked like he just aced it, which made her even more mad and confused. Serena sighed. Oh well, at least I won't get in trouble with my parents, she told herself sadly as Mr. Johnson got to her desk. Serena just handed him the paper and rested her hand on her arm. The teacher was just about to go to the next person when he stopped suddenly.
Serena, he began. Serena looked at him believing she would get accused from cheating or something. How'd you do your test? It's completely in Japanese. I thought you didn't know Japanese. I don't. Then why did you take it? He asked as he dug in the pile and pulled out Percy's paper. I had an English version made just for you and Percy. Serena's eyes went wide before she slammed her head against the desk. Mr. Johnson just kept on going as he tried to hold back his laughter. I stressed about finishing that stupid test for nothing? She yelled at herself. Percy looked on over at her as he couldn't help but laugh along with Vidal.
The bell rang shortly after and they left to an assembly that discussed their upcoming field trip. Elena and Gohan had no trouble finding the others and picked a spot where all of them could sit. Serena however made sure that Scherpner would have no place to sit down next to her. Elena surveyed the gym to see that it was fairly larger than they had last year. But it had to be since what happened last time she was here. They had to rebuild the entire gym. Elena tried to hold in the laughter and looked at Serena to notice the red mark on her forehead. What did you run into? She asked. Serena reached up to her forehead as she had already forgotten the bruise was there and quickly blushed in embarrassment. I don't want to talk about it. Besides, I didn't run into a stupid wall like you. She snapped before crossing her arms. Elena looked at her weirdly as she knew it had to be something embarrassing. I'll ask Percy about it later, she told herself before facing forwards again. Soon the selected 15 students entered the building and took their seats amongst the set of bleachers. Serena sat in the corner so that when Scherpner got there, he wasn't able to sit next to her. Hey Vidal, do we get to meet your dad? Eraza asked, excitement overwhelming her. Vidal rolled her eyes in response. The last thing she wanted was her dad meeting her friends. Especially Gohan. Man, when he found out that she had a boyfriend, he would flip. Unfortuan LTY. But hey, I need you guys to keep me and Gohan's relationship a secret. Understood? Vidal snapped. Sure thing, but why? Shouldn't your pops know already? Eraza asked. He does, but hopefully he forgot about the whole thing. Vidal trailed off. Serena and Percy looked at the two lovers in confusion. I guess it's a Romeo and Juliet thing, Serena told herself. Testing. Testing 1 2 3. The principal said as he tested the microphone. Alright my bright scalers. I want to thank all of you for coming to this meeting and even bigger thanks to Vidal Satan whose father is funding this entire trip. The room all of a sudden filled with joyous claps as Vidal turned red in the face. Now everyone settle down please. Thank you. Now you all must have heard about this already, but just in case, you 15 are the top students we have at this school, and to show our appreciation, we are taking you all for a week-long field trip starting Monday. We will be leaving here around 6:30 to get to the new and improved Science Center at 7 to start the virtual tours and activities we have in stored for that day. Then we will be staying a night at the Satan Inn and leaving around 7 to get to the Satan Wild Waters Resort around 8 and you all get to do whatever you please. But I'm warning you, if you cause any trouble on this trip,
You'll be suspended. Then on Wednesday, we will go to the legendary Korean Tower where legend tells of sacred water that makes a person 10 times stronger than they've ever been before. Anyways, we will be staying with the Indian tribe that guards Korean Tower. So be on your best behavior. Then on Thursday, our destination is to Capsule Corp where Bulma Briefs, the daughter of Dr. Brief, will teach us a few things and give us a grand tour of their quarters. Now this is an honor as no school has ever gone before, so you all need to be on your best behavior. Then finally on Friday, we will go to the very place where the merciless monster cell was put to rest after killing half the world's population at the hands of Mr. Satan himself. Everyone in the room cheered, including the principal. However, Gohan, Elena, Percy, and Serena stayed quiet. Gohan and Elena both knew that Mr. Satan was nothing but a fraud. Gohan beat Cell, not Hercule. He just didn't take the credit because he could care less about fame and fortune. The funny thing was that he was only an 11-year-old boy. Hercule was about 28. Okay. Settle down. While we're at the site, we'll be greeted by Mr. Satan himself to learn how to defend ourselves and meet him in person. The room bursted out in cheers again, leaving the five still speechless. Percy and Serena had no idea what had happened to her those long 7 years ago, but that day still haunts Gohan. Well, I'm looking forward to this field trip and I'm sure all of you are as well. So have a fantastic weekend and I'll see you all bright and early on Monday. The school day soon ended and Gohan's group of friends meet up outside the school. They were so excited about the whole trip that they were practically bouncing off the walls. But some of them had other things in mind. So, you're still coming over to hang out, right? Gohan asked. Vidal smiled deviously. Of course I am. Why wouldn't I? I do come over every weekend. Well, I wasn't sure. Hey, that gives me an idea. Gohan turned to Percy and Serena. How would you like it if you came over for a while too? I'm sure my mom and brother would be glad to meet you too. Serena and Percy exchanged uneasy glances. They still didn't know him nor Vidal that well and wasn't sure if they could rightfully trust him or not. But Elena didn't have to think twice. That's an awesome idea. You can come over so I don't get lonely. She pipped up. Serena looked at her as she still didn't understand how she knew Gohan and everyone else nor how she got here in the first place. Well, I guess it will be a perfect opportunity to fill Serena in on all the details you've been hiding from her, Elena. Percy lectured the happy short brown-haired girl. Give me a break, Percy. I did it for good reasons, she pouted before crossing her arms. She didn't like being lectured. Gohan smiled. Well, I guess it's settled. Serena and Percy will join us. Vidal looked at him in annoyance as she just wanted to be alone with him for a while. Can Serena, Percy, and I take the Nimbus? Elena begged. Gohan thought for a moment. He wasn't sure if Serena and Percy had pure enough hearts to be able to ride on the Nimbus, but it was worth the shot. They can try, but let's all get on the roof so we don't attract any unwanted attention to ourselves. Gohan trailed off as they all headed to the roof. The squirrel finished its nut and quickly scrambled off Goten, who was beginning to take off his shirt to go fishing. You all know Goku and Gohan's way of fishing. Goten does it the same way. He quickly discarded his clothing and quickly jumped up in the air, falling right above the water. I'll be done in a minute, Charlie. Goten quickly yelled as he splashed into the cold clear water. Charlie just watched as the young boy quickly sat on top of a fish that was twice his size, grabbing onto its fins as if it were a horse's reins. Goten smiled in victory before pulling the fish out of water, still sitting on the top of it. Hey Charlie, look what I caught for Mama to cook tonight. Goten chimed as Charlie marveled the fish that was almost as big as he was. Man, this will only be enough to fill the first course. I guess I better go get another one. Goten laughed as he dived back in the water. Another one? Charlie mused to himself as he looked back at the enormous fish. How many people does he have in his family? Uraza and Sharpner decided that they didn't want to go and went to catch a movie instead, despite the fact that Percy and Serena were going. But to be honest, no one really cared if they went or stayed. Everyone else soon arrived on the roof, the beautiful sight taking their breaths away. Man, I'll never get used to this view of the city, he trailed off. Nimbus. Serena and Percy looked around in confusion. Nimbus. What kind of name is Nimbus? Serena asked herself as she looked around for someone to come out, but no one did. She wanted to ask who Nimbus was, but she found it better to not ask. She didn't have to wait that long because in the distance, she spotted a fast-moving golden cloud that appeared to be heading right for them. Wah, what the hell is that? Her jaw dropped as the cloud zoomed on over her head and stopped right behind Gohan. That's unnatural. Elena jumped in joy as she quickly ran on over to it. It's been a long time, Nimbus. I've missed you. Has Gohan and Goten played with you for a while? She asked as she gently petted it. Serena looked at her friend in disbelief. She knew she was crazy, but not this crazy. Running into walls and being able to see dead people was already pushing her over the edge, but talking to a cloud and petting it, this was way over the line. Percy had the same train of thoughts as Serena did. He may not know Elena for the goofy way she acted around the mortals, but talking to a cloud was making him second-guess his judgments. Hope you're ready for a ride, Elena said in her cute little kid voice, trying to mimic Goten's voice. Serena knew she had to say something unless her friend would get hurt. Belver, that's a cloud. Clouds are made of water. You can't ride on one. Elena turned to her with a sour face. That's what you think, you know. I'm tired of people thinking that I'm gonna do something insane without considering the possibilities. She turned back to the cloud. Serena slapped her own forehead. Don't say I didn't warn you. Elena laughed as she quickly jumped up and landed on the Nimbus crossed-legged. Serena and Percy's eyes nearly went out of their sockets as they saw that Elena was riding on cloud, and she wasn't falling through. See? I told you so. Percy studied the cloud intently as he recalled Chiron mentioning a type of cloud that allowed only the ones with pure hearts to ride on them. He didn't think they were actually real, but seeing one only proved himself wrong. Can I try? He asked, getting excited. Yeah, sure. Just jump on right behind me. Percy quickly ran to the golden cloud and lightly touched it with his hand. He was expecting it to turn into water immediately or feel the water within it, but none of those occurred. Percy ran his hand up and down it and marveled at its silky soft feeling. Well, what are you waiting for? Hop on already. Percy looked on up at Elena to see that she wasn't afraid for him. He learned from past experiences that she wouldn't let anyone try anything unless it was perfectly safe. The reassurance in her eyes was unmistakable. The demigod placed both of his hands on the cloud before putting his weight in his hands. As he figured out that he wasn't sinking, he hoisted himself up and sat down next to the laughing Elena. You did I? Bang! Elena looked on down below her as she saw Percy had indeed fallen through. She smirked deviously. What could do this time, Percy? The Nimbus can tell if you've done something bad, so what did you do? Percy blushed madly in embarrassment. I don't know. You don't know? Or won't tell? Gohan shook his head in disbelief. Come on, guys. We've got to hurry or it'll get too dark. I live far, remember. Elena turned to him, but it only takes 15 minutes to get there when flying. What he's trying to say kindly is to hurry your butts up or we're leaving without you. Vital snapped, getting impatient. Percy stood back up and walked on over to Gohan. You're gonna have to carry me, don't you? Gohan shook his head yes. Percy sighed. Serena better not be able to ride that thing, that would be so embarrassing. Alright, Serena. Your turn. Elena called over. Serena looked up at them as if they were insane before going over to the cloud. She placed an unbelieving hand on it, expecting it to fall on through as well, but that didn't exactly happen. Instead, sudden warmth under her palm began to tickle her as the silky soft cloud made her feel at ease. What the? Hurry up, Serenity. Serena glared at Elena as she heard that name and pushed herself up on the cloud, preparing herself to fall. But as she sat there with her eyes glued shut, nothing happened. Slowly opening her eyes, she saw that the cloud was still supporting her and not dropping her like Percy. What? Now that's not far. Elena rigged it, Percy complained as he saw Serena hadn't gone through. I think I can get used to this. She smirked as she glanced at the blushing Percy. Teasing him was the fun part. She could care less about being able to fly on the stupid cloud. Alright then, let's head on over. We'll race you guys, Gohan said happily before quickly lifting Percy up. On your marks, he began. Hold on to me, Serena, Elena yelled as she looked on forward. Get set. Go. Gohan cried in joy as they all bolted towards the mountains. Serena nearly fell back as she wasn't expecting the cloud to be so fast and dug her nails into the cloud. It was traveling as fast as the speed of sound. The incoming wind forced her to squint her eyes as she could hardly see Vital, Percy and Gohan anymore. They were a good yard in front of them and seemed to getting farther away. But she could care less about that. It wasn't until now that she realized how much fun the Nimbus was. It was like a free roller coaster without seatbelts, her favorite ride. Godin soon surfaced again with yet another huge fish almost the size of Charlie. The poor dragon never even knew that the kid was this strange, not to mention powerful. He was only a 7-year-old, and from what he could tell, he was trying not to use his powers, but it was obviously impossible. "Hey Charlie. Look what I caught." He began to laugh. "I caught a big one." He trailed off as he felt 5 power levels heading his way. One he immediately recognized was his brother Gohan and his girlfriend Vidal. But the other 3 he was still unsure about. However, he had a pretty good idea who one was. He continued to stare up at the sky as he knew they were coming in rather fast. "Hey Charlie, stay here, I'll be right back," Godin said as he quickly flew off to his house. Charlie wanted to follow him, but in order to gain Godin's trust, he needed to do what he was told. So he remained where he was at, watching the small specks in the sky fly on by. Gohan looked on back to check on the others, and to his surprise, he saw both Serena and Elena standing up, arms stretched out as if they were surfing. He chuckled to himself before turning back to Percy, who looked like he paled a bit. Gohan knew that he was going to be nervous flying. From the start he didn't seem too thrilled with the idea. Elena and Serena were laughing up a storm. They didn't care about winning the race anymore. They were too busy enjoying the ride. Even though Elena was used to it, she did it for Serena. She missed her so much and felt bad about leaving her all by herself like that. She owed her. "Is that her? One of the dark figures from before?" asked her friend. He nodded. "She isn't the one with black hair, so she must be one of the ones with brown hair." "Oh, shut up, you idiots." They both turned around to see a rather young teenaged girl with long black curly hair wearing a short dark purple dress and wore black leggings that went up above her knees. Even though they didn't know her, they could tell that she was on their side. "And who might you be?" The girl chuckled. "Limax's right-hand assistant Katrina. You want the demigod, don't you?" The figures both nodded. "I can help you with that. She'll give herself up if we get a hold of one of the younger children." "And how do you know this?" "Because I've been Elena's enemy for centuries. The one you want is Serena Peck. And I can help capture her right now." Percy couldn't believe he let himself agree with these crazed demi-people. He hated being up in the air where water wasn't present for leagues away, making him feel off and insecure. Not to mention the fact that he was forbidden to be in the air by Zeus himself unless he wanted to be turned into a fried potato. You'd think keeping the god's world in balance would cut him some slack. But he hadn't heard any thunder or saw any lethal lightning, so Zeus must have overlooked him this one time. He heard Serena's and Elena's joyous laughter from behind him and turned. There he saw both of them standing up as if they were on a surfboard in the air, faces bright red from laughing too much. He envied them. Serena really had no idea what challenges that lied ahead of them. If Elena knew, she had a funny way of showing her worry in the matter. It was only a matter of time before monsters found their scent and came after him and Serena. Kronos would stop at nothing to turn them both on his side, even if he had to send monsters to another planet in a different galaxy. He sighed and returned his gaze forward. "Hope you're having more luck than we are, Annabeth." Annabeth quietly pulled herself on the top of the small hill and peeked over the edge. Even though it was dusk, the blowing sand made it hard to see. She could tell that there were 2 rather large bloodhounds down below, trying to pick up on her scent. "Great, we can't even escape the forest without being mauled," she cursed before sliding back down to the camp's new nurse. She was no younger than 80, that's for sure. She had long white hair that glowed in the moonlight and wore a long black dress. "We can't go that way either. The bloodhounds will tear us apart in less than a minute." Annabeth dropped to the floor in deep thought. They might have stood a chance against the bloodhounds and find Chiron if May was still able to fight. If only Percy were here, maybe, just maybe we could find a way out of here. Her thoughts trailed off as her gaze drifted upon the ocean, a smirk immediately appearing at the sight of a canoe. Percy could tell that they were nearing their destination. Houses started appearing, the animals seemed to be more alert, and Gohan was flying a little closer to the ground. He was relieved at the thought of setting foot on solid ground again where he was sure he would be out of trouble, but like always, he was wrong. Gohan had lowered to the ground a bit, not because they were getting close to his house, but because he felt something off. He didn't know what exactly, but there were things around that he had never felt before. Besides one. Despite all the attempts he tried to figure out who or what they were, something seemed to stopping his ability to do so. Serena gazed at the fresh forest around them in awe. The forests she had seen before were filled with hunters and houses that scared away all the animals and destroyed all the trees around them. But this forest was alive. You could just tell by looking at it. Her thoughts, however, stopped cold. Something inside of her told that there was danger nearby. It was the same feeling she had before the camp was invaded, but this didn't have the same urgent feeling to it. She knew though that someone or something was watching them, as if waiting to attack. Quick, sit down. Serena heard the voice speak to her and without question, did what it said. Just in the nick of time too. Something black flew over her head in attempt to grab her and she gasped to see what looked like a person's outline, but she was completely black with piercing red eyes. Elena seemed to hear her and turned with a serious face only to feel someone tackle her off the cloud. At the corner of Serena's eye, she saw someone grasping onto Elena as they both fell towards the ground at a dangerous speed. Kendall, she screamed in terror laced with anger. Gohan and Vidal quickly stopped to watch as the black monster charged Serena again, but quickly jumped out of the way. But dodging this thing on such a small cloud was extremely difficult. Percy quickly pulled Riptide out of his pocket and was about to uncap it when something snatched him out of Gohan's hands, causing him to lose his grip as it fell into the forest below. No! He yelled as he tried to reach for it, but it was useless. He then looked on up at what had grabbed him to see that it was another completely black figure. Gohan didn't know who to help first. Percy was being carried off while Serena was being attacked by another dark figure and Elena was falling towards the ground. Someone grasping onto her. He recognized her immediately and scowled. It was Katrina, a demon assistant. Vidal, help Serena, I'll get Percy. But what about Elena? Don't worry, Katrina won't let her get killed. She'll get killed herself if that happened. Vidal nodded in understanding before going off to help Serena as Gohan flew off to catch up with Percy. Their help, however, was not needed. Percy was having a somewhat difficult time. Sure, the pen was supposed to return to him, but it hadn't quite made its way back again. He would have waited, but seeing a black portal open a few feet away from them made him change his mind. Guess I have to improvise. He looked down below to see a small river and smirked. Using his willpower, he felt the turn in his stomach and the water below shot up like a rocket, grabbing the human-like figure and pulling it back down into the water. Gohan stopped as he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The water seemed alive and helping Percy somehow. It only took Percy a few seconds to get away from the black figure once they fell in the river and commanded the water to keep it down until it drowned. But water didn't seem to be doing any good. The monster soon regained control over the situation and freed itself of the hole he was in and looked back at Percy. Great, now I just made it angrier. The black figure charged at him with fury in his eyes as Percy quickly grabbed Riptide out his pocket and uncapped it. Finally, the monster slammed itself against Percy, knocking the wind out of him. There was one thing he favored about being Poseidon's son right now, being able to breathe underwater. Percy pushed the monster away from him only to realize that his sword was dripping in black blood. He looked on up at the creature to see that its body began to fade away. He had won. Gohan watched the black figure dissolve into nothing as Percy emerged from the water, not even wet. He was as dry as he was before being dropped in there. Percy fixed his attention to Serena in fear as he watched the fight she was having. The dark figure that was attacking Serena had finally cornered her. The only way she could go now was plunge to her death. She looked down at where Elena was and then at Percy. She couldn't bear if they got hurt, especially if these things killed them. Anger rose within her as she glued her eyes tight as the dark figure lunged at her. Something in her stomach turned and she felt a pull. The sensation was so weird that she forced her eyes open. She looked on over at where the monster that and gasped. It frozen in midair. Her face paled. "Wah, what's going on?" she asked herself. "You've unlocked your hidden power. Now quickly, use your knife and stab her in the forehead." Serena stood up quickly. She might not know what the voice meant about her unlocking her powers, but she could care less about that. Quickly unsheathing her knife that Chiron fitted her with, she stabbed the thing in the forehead before ripping the blade free. It screamed in agonizing pain before fading away, leaving Serena looking rather confused on what just happened. Percy's jaw dropped as he never saw such a thing like that happen before. He knew despite his doubt that Serena had caused it to remain still, but he couldn't figure out how. No god was capable of that. Elena looked on below her to see that somehow they were a far distance from the others. They looked like tiny dots floating in the air. Obviously something Katrina did on purpose. She then realized that the ground was coming at them fast. Katrina still held onto her tightly and laughing evilly. "Katrina, pull up or we'll both hit the ground," she snapped. Even though Katrina was her arch-enemy's main minion, she knew that she would never intently kill her. Maybe render her unconscious, but she was forbidden to ever destroy her. Katrina looked at the incoming ground, not fazed by it at all. "Not until you give me the heart." Elena's eyes went stern with hatred. "I don't have it, How many times do I have to tell you guys that? It stopped working a long time ago." "I know you have it, I can feel its power emitting from you." She scowled. She didn't know how many times she tried to tell these demons that the heart of Earth was now dormant. Chiron said so himself. "It's because I used to wear it, dimwit, that was my job." Katrina smiled. "That's what you may think," she began. Elena looked at her weirdly before she realized what she was inferring. "It disappeared a few days ago, it found a new person to protect it." "Then why do you still want me?" "Because you're still valuable to Limax, so is your friend Serena," she chuckled. "We'll give you until the end of the week to decide whose side you and your friends are on. Unless you want us to burn down another place." Katrina trailed off before disappearing. Elena didn't even have time to react as she felt the impact of the ground, her vision fading instantly. Vital and Gohan looked at each other. Gohan could feel Serena's and Percy's power radiating so differently than he had ever felt before, but he didn't worry about it that much as their auras were pure. "So that's why Elena..." Gohan stopped dead cold in mid-thought and turned to where Elena was falling to see that she wasn't there. Neither was Katrina. That's when he felt her fading energy signal and began to panic. "Vital. We've got to find Elena now," he hollered before rushing off to where he could faintly feel her. Percy overheard him and took off following him. Serena got a sickening feeling that something wasn't right and played with her new necklace. She found it in the lake at Camp Half-Blood nervously. She then commanded the Nimbus to follow Gohan, Percy, and Vital, wondering why they looked so terrified. Unknown to her though, Katrina eyed her suspiciously. There was something that seemed off about her than before, but Katrina couldn't figure it out. She had done what Limax told her to do, and now waited for the results. "Hope this will tick Serena off," she muttered before quietly following her. She better be the one in the prophecy. Gohan rushed through the trees, not caring if he was whacked with a branch or rammed through a tree. All his thoughts were bent on getting to Elena before it was too late. Serena soon caught up with Percy and Vital and asked what was wrong. They didn't respond however, their faces were too pale. "I wonder what's up," but even as she asked herself that, she could scarcely feel a pain in the back of her head. Quickly reaching up to see if she was injured, she discovered that nothing was there. This injury was not her own. Gohan soon saw Elena's motionless body in the grass in front of them and quickly came to a halt. Everyone else stopped behind them and slowly walked up to them. Serena, however, stayed frozen. She could tell just by how everyone was acting that Elena had been injured, badly too. If you looked closely enough, you could see the color slowly draining from her face and the area around them began to feel unhappy, to say the least. Vital dropped to her knees as she gazed upon the injured child before gulping. Who did this?" "It was Katrina, but I don't understand." "Katrina?" Serena clenched her fists in anger. "Nobody hurts my friend and gets away with it," she vowed as her anger began overwhelming her. Rocks, sticks, leaves, and other things around her began to rise above the ground. Katrina gasped in shock as she couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was her after all. "We have to get her to the lookout so Den can heal her," Gohan said in a desperate voice. But even he knew that Den's lookout was too far. "Gohan, it's too far. You must have some senzu beans at your house," Vital wailed as she tried to think of other ways of getting Elena's wound the proper care. Gohan shook his head no as he didn't keep senzu beans at his house. Percy knew that the only chance they had to save her was by using his healing abilities on her. He had only done this to Annabeth once, but he knew he had to try it again. "We have to get her to the water." Gohan and Vital looked at him as they didn't fully understand. "I can heal her as long as there's water." "Heal? But I'll explain later. We've gotta hurry though," Percy yelled before running off to a nearby river. Gohan and Vidal gave each other uneasy looks before gently picking her up and following Percy. "Come on, Serena," Vidal yelled. Serena was still angry, but knew that Percy could do the job. She unclenched her hands and began running when she heard a montage of noises behind her and turned in defense mode. Nothing. She saw nothing. She was unaware of what she had done earlier and didn't even give much mind to the rocks that rolled back into place. She ran off to join the others, a stunned Katrina staring after her. Gohan had set Elena down next to the river, unsure of how Percy could heal her. He had seen how Percy had the water take down the monster earlier, but he was still trying to figure out how in the world he had done it. He didn't have to wait that long, however. Percy stepped in the water and a wave of energy flourished within him. It felt like he could take on 10 of those black things all at once. But that didn't matter right now. He needed to heal the wounded. He willed the water to rise with his hand and stretched it out where the wound on Elena's head was. Slowly and gently, the water soaked the area and soon enough, the wound began healing itself. Gohan and Vidal gasped as they saw this transaction. There was no way a human could do this. That's when the idea hit them. "You and Serena aren't human, are you?" Gohan asked in a rather excited voice. He couldn't remember the last time he made friends with an alien like him. Well, sorta was. Percy didn't respond right away. He wasn't sure if they were out of the clearing yet. Something kept telling him that there was still danger afoot. "I'll tell you guys when we get to your house." Out in the wild, he trailed off as he looked around suspiciously. Gohan took the hint. It's not safe to talk about such matters. Serena came trotting over, still clenching her fists in anger. "Once I figure out who ordered the attack on us, they're dead," she muttered to herself. But even though she wished she could do just that, something told her she wouldn't get her revenge. "You all right, Serena?" Vidal asked, seeing Serena's knuckles turn white. "Just, peachy. How's Kendall's seaweed brain?" Vidal and Gohan snickered at the name. Percy frowned. "What did I say about you calling me that? Only Annabeth and Grover can." "Oh, I see how it is. I'm just not that important like your little girlfriend." Percy blushed madly. "I don't like Annabeth." A slight moan made everyone look down at the brunette, whose eyes were starting to flutter open. Serena sighed in relief before kneeling down to her, an angered expression ruining her usually cool attitude. Elena turned her head a bit and smiled widely to see Serena. "Hey Rena, glad you're safe," she trailed off. Serena wanted to yell at her for not staying with her, but she just couldn't stay mad at her. That was something Elena was famous for. "And you're still the biggest dork I know." Elena couldn't help but laugh as Gohan kneeled down to her as well, a still worried expression present. "You alright? You took a nasty fall back there." Elena nodded with her goofy smile. Gohan relaxed a bit before his overprotective side kicked in. "What did you think you were doing? You should have pushed her off using your—" He stopped as he noticed her neck was bare. No necklace, no trinket, no nothing. He gasped in disbelief. Elena knew he noticed what was missing and sighed sadly. "Katrina thought I still had it too. That's why she attacked me." Serena looked at the both of them in confusion. What could be so important for her to lose? "Even I know better than to give her something to keep safe. She loses everything." "What did you lose this time, Belver?" Serena practically laughed, but stopped herself as she saw the serious glares they gave her. "This is no laughing matter, Serena. You should know that," Percy remarked as he got out of the water, bone dry. Gohan and Vidal looked at him weirdly, but didn't say a thing. "Wanna tell us all about it when we get to my place?" Gohan asked Elena as he lifted her up. He already knew she would be having dizzy spells, so he carried her to save them time. Plus he didn't want to leave her alone like that again. "Yeah, that might be a good idea." She then turned to Serena and looked her over intently. It was as if she was seeing something the others weren't. But then again, she always did. "Hey Vidal," she began. "Can you carry Serena?" Percy looked over at her as if I'd gone insane or something. Serena glared at me as she didn't like being touched, especially by people she had fights with. I don't think that's a good idea." Percy trailed off as he saw the gleam in Elena's eyes. They weren't her normal, "Hey, let's goof around," eyes. They were her, "You better listen to me or something horrible will happen." He gulped and turned to the shocked girls. "She's right. I can, walk," he said as he wasn't sure how he was going to get around. Elena smirked half-heartedly. She knew she could count on Percy to help her out. Closing her eyes, A slight breeze began to form and a loud sound erupted from the trees behind them. Percy nearly jumped at the sound and uncapped Riptide in defense. Serena watched in awe as a beautiful white horse appeared almost from nowhere and trotted alongside Percy. He looked at it in much surprise and wondered what exactly was going on. "It's okay, young one, I've come to your assistance," he heard the horse say to him. The voice would have scared him last year, but he learned that since his father created horses with the foam of the water, he was part of them. Well, that was convenient. Percy looked over at Elena as she nodded. He knew she had summoned it for him. Quickly hopping on, Vidal lifted Serena up, who wasn't a happy camper, and took off after Gohan. "Well, let's follow them," Percy said excitedly before he was almost thrown off the horse. It was extremely fast and moved so agile that its footsteps were silent. Goten burst into his house with a smile playing on his lips. He couldn't wait to meet Gohan's friends and see Elena again. Maybe, just maybe he could convince Bulma to bring Trunks over. Vegeta wouldn't even mind seeing her. That reminded him. He needed to tell Chi-Chi about their old friend coming over. "Mama," he hollered before entering her room. Everyone landed on the front lawn of Gohan's house. Serena swatted Vidal's hands off of her as she stepped as far away as possible from them, trying to stretch after being cramped. Gohan's house looked rather small to Serena. One part of it was round and white while the other half looked like an old-fashioned cabin. Truth to be told, she couldn't wrap her mind on the thought that they lived here. There wasn't any house or store for miles and the house was so small. Percy and the streaming white horse came out of the forest and stopped at Serena's side. She had to hold back the laughter at seeing Percy's hair pulled back with leaves and tree branches stuck in it. He looked like a weed from Serena's point of view. "Love the new look, it suits you, seaweed brain," she laughed. Percy gave her a death glare before getting off the horse. "Ha ha, very funny, thanks for the ride, Nim Sul, Nim Sul, oh, White Wind," he interpreted. "What kind of a name is White Wind?" "It's a name given to me by the Great Tor." "Great Forest?" "Yes, but you can call me Quicksilver, that's what Elena calls me." Percy looked on over at Elena in Gohan's arms as he felt her eyes staring at him. He knew she wanted him to stop asking questions and follow them. "Well, thanks, I owe you one." "I'll hold you to it." The horse then ran back into the forest, fading away just like it came. Serena looked at Percy in confusion. Was he just talking to that horse? "You're officially crazy. You belong in the nut house with Kendall and our friend Caleb." "Oh, shut up," he grumbled before following the others inside the small home. Serena threw her hands up in disbelief. "How come when he cusses you don't yell at him?" she yelled at Elena. "Because it's funnier when I do it to you." Serena dropped her hands back down to her side before shaking her head in disbelief. "Man, that girl sometimes, I wonder why I'm still her friend." Once she made it inside the small home, she gasped. It was a lot bigger than it looked on the outside. The kitchen was at least 2-bedroom sizes with a huge wooden table in the middle of the floor. In the hallway, she could see a pair of stairs that seemed to go high up, but it didn't seem like it was a 2-story house. The living room was in the other house and it was even bigger than the kitchen. They had a medium-sized TV that was bolted to a wooden cabinet that held movies in it. All in all, it was decent. "Mom, I'm home. And a bunch of new friends came with me," Gohan hollered as he finally set Elena down. She wobbled at first, but caught her balance soon. "Gohan." They heard a little squeaky voice sing happily before an orange blob jumped on Gohan. Gohan laughed and swung the small child in the air before setting him back down. "It's nice to see you too, Goten," he chuckled. Goten looked around at everyone else who was there. A huge smirk appeared on his face when he saw Elena and practically tackled her to the floor. "Elena. I've missed you so much," Elena laughed before standing back up, Goten still holding on to her for dear life. "I missed you too, Goten. Hope you've been behaving for everyone." "Yep. I helped Gohan beat Broly, not to mention entered the World Martial Arts Tournament," he giggled. Serena looked at the small child that was hanging onto her friend with her motherly smile. She loved being around kids. Especially cute lil ones like Goten seemed to be. "You did? Awesome. I'm proud of you." Goten finally released his grasp and looked at the other two in the room. When he saw Serena, he smirked deviously and rushed up to her. "Hi. My name's Goten. What's yours?" Serena couldn't help but smile at the pint-sized boy. He was so energetic and happy, just like Gohan. I'm Serena, nice to meet you Godin. It's nice to meet you too. He laughed before lowering his voice. But if you're trying to steal Gohan from Vital, I'm warning you that you'll get squashed like a bug. Vital's a meanie head. Serena didn't know whether to be offended or to appreciate the comment. But once the words sunk in, she blushed wildly. I don't like Gohan, she yelled as she stood up tall and towered above the laughing Godin. Everyone turned to her as they didn't know what she was talking about. You all right, Serena? Percy asked. Serena slowly returned to her normal height, clenching her fists slightly. Yep, nothing to worry about. Gohan, is that you? Chi-Chi asked as she walked in the kitchen. Her face paled a bit as she saw how many kids were in there at one time. Well, looks like you're getting plenty of friends, she trailed off as she noticed Serena. She smirked as well. Why Gohan, looks like you've got yourself another lady friend, she isn't more than a friend is she? Gohan nearly fell over in reaction. What, you know I like Vital Mom. I know, just making sure. It was hard for Serena not to slug anyone in the arm, that's for sure. She would have if it wasn't for Elena who seemed to purposely position herself next to her, making sure she stayed out of trouble. Well, I guess we better go to my room. We've got a lot of explaining to do. Katrina hid herself behind a tree, still not believing what she saw. She's definitely the chosen one, she scowled. I'll enjoy this. Chi-Chi had made them many treats and snacks. The term, snacks, however just means desserts. Serena tried to see beyond the piles of chocolate cakes, pies, cookies, yogurt, ice cream, and everything else imaginable. She smirked so wide that she could slip a whole piece of cake in her mouth with ease. Elena watched her warily. She knew what happened when she had sugar and dreaded the outcome. Now, before we eat, I believe explanations need to be in order, Gohan announced as everyone turned their full attention to the conversation at hand. I guess I'll start first with my family's story. You see, my dad was sent here when he was a baby to destroy the inhabitants here. But a tragic accident when he was about 5 caused him to lose his memory. My father was a Saiyan, an ultimate fighting warrior that gets more and more powerful with each fight they win. They wanted nothing but to cause pain and violence to gain more power, but after the accident, my father became the innocent man we know today. Godin and I are half Saiyans, half Earthlings. Serena and Percy gave them a weird look. They didn't really understand what they were exactly, but they didn't want to look stupid, so they didn't ask any questions. Vital is fully human, but she's an amazing fighter. Gohan finished as Vital blushed. Elena rolled her eyes. Well, isn't that pleasant? Percy and Serena's turn. Percy looked out the window to make sure he didn't sense any monsters that might be eavesdropping. When he was sure the coast was clear, he sighed. Well, you guys know the Greek gods, right? Vital, Gohan, and Godin nodded. Well, they're real, and we're their children. He was expecting their jaws to drop or their eyes fall wide. But that didn't happen. Instead, they looked excited. So Percy continued. I'm the son of Poseidon. Serena is, well, unknown. We still haven't figured out who her godparent is. There was a long silence until Godin jumped out of his seat. What? That is totally awesome. Does that mean you can control the water and stuff? He said excitedly. Percy nodded as Godin sat back down, smile faded. That's so cool, he muttered, trying to imagine it all. So wait, Percy, what do you mean when you say that Serena is still unknown? Didn't you live with them? Gohan asked. No, it's forbidden for a god to see their child, it's an ancient rule. That's so unfair. Vital snapped. That's a stupid rule. Vital, watch your language. Elena trailed off as she looked back at Serena. She remembered what Chiron said to her a few days ago in the Iris message. You'll have to be the protector for now. Serena noticed Elena's gaze at her and smirked. Isn't it Belver's turn now? She asked as she couldn't wait to hear her story. Serena could still hardly believe that Elena kept this entire secret until now. Gohan looked on over at Elena to see that she was looking down in deep thought. He couldn't blame her. He remembered how she didn't want to be treated differently. You don't have to if it makes you feel uncalm. No, it's fine. I'm her protector now anyway. She deserves to know. She cut Gohan off in mid-sentence. Well, there's no easy way of saying this, Serena. She looked up at her with glossy eyes. Serena knew that whatever she really was must be difficult for her to say. I'm a high elf. Serena gave a confused look. She didn't quite understand what she meant. That's not all, Elena, Percy reminded her. Elena sighed sadly. My parents, they're the leaders of the elfin court that protect the earth and all living beings. You can say they are the earth. Serena tried to process what was said. She knew that she couldn't be an elf that worked in Santa's workshops. Even though she was short. She had to be a wise immortal one like the ones from Lord of the Rings. She rolled her eyes to herself. Man, that movie bored me. She thought about all the strange things she could do. That would explain a lot, but did you just say that you were my protector? Elena nodded. I was the only one they would trust in protecting you. You are the 12th daughter of Athena, gifted with strong powers. What? The daughter of Athena? You have to be joking. Percy yelled as he couldn't believe what he just heard. Serena shot him a glare from across the room and he immediately shut his mouth. How do you know who my mom is? Serena asked. Elena sighed. She didn't like talking about things like this. She just kinda hoped they would figure out themselves. My dad sent me after the heart went missing. He said that making sure Luke and Kronos didn't get you was our main priority for now. What? No offense, but finding the heart of Earth is way more important, Gohan said unbelievingly. He may not know her father or much about the gods, but it was obvious what would happen if the enemy got a hold of the heart. Elena shook her head. No, it'll find its way back to me soon enough. It's just like Riptide. It always finds its way back. She turned to Serena. You know how you made that monster freeze like that? Serena nodded. Well, you were using magic that we elves gave you when you were born. Magic? Why did you guys give it to me? We had a deal with Athena. She would help us drive the dark forces out of Middle-earth and we would grant her 12th daughter magic. She usually isn't one that wants to gain more power, but having a chance to get the elves' magic is a blessing. We weren't too inclining at first, but we knew that with her wisdom, her child would make sure the gift wasn't misused. This deal, however, made many angry. The gods began a riot, but it was quickly dealt with. Kronos, however, became very interested in you. And now he's after me, man. Why did you have to make that stupid deal? Serena snapped. Watch your language, Peck. Elena snapped back. Serena rolled her eyes in disbelief. She didn't see how stupid was a bad word. Hey guys, Godin said sadly, that caused everyone to look at him in worry. He looked back up at them. Face saddened. Can we eat now please? I'm starving. Everyone fell anime style. Godin. What did I say about only acting that way when something was wrong? You scared us half to death. Serena gave Gohan a glare. She didn't like it when little kids were being yelled at for something so small. Hey, don't yell at your brother like that. He doesn't know any better. Growl. Serena and Percy jumped and got in defense mode. He pulled out Riptide and she pulled out her knife. Godin laughed. Sorry guys, my tummy's talking. What? That was your stomach, Percy said in an unconvinced voice before capping Riptide. Serena put away her knife and sighed in frustration. I wanted to punch someone in the face. Godin placed his hand on the back of his head and laughed. Yeah, it wants food, he began before picking up a full cake. And it won't be denied. He gulped the whole thing in one bite and quickly went to the next. Soon enough, everyone stared digging into the desserts. But when Serena saw the warning look on Elena's face, she forced herself to resist. It was hard for her, especially since chocolate was her favorite. But she knew what happened when she had sweets. Let's just say they wouldn't have to wait for a monster to come and kill them. Days soon passed by and night came. The girls all slept in the quest room while the boys all piled up in Gohan and Godin's room. Percy didn't mind much, he got attached to these Saiyans rather quickly. But he couldn't stop thinking about Annabeth and wondered how she and May were doing. She's gonna freak when she finds out she has a new sister. He chuckled before turning on his side. I hope Gohan and Godin will help us get everyone back. Serena tossed and turned in her sleep with a sweat-drenched face. She clenched the blankets as if she'd die if she let go. In Dream, do you know their current location? Serena heard a dark voice ask. She tried to look around, but she couldn't see anything. As she listened to it a little longer, she knew immediately who it was. Kronos. She clenched her fists in fear. Yes, in the mountains, sire, we'll attack when they least expect it, a familiar voice echoed. Serena could have sworn she knew who it belonged to. It was female and seemed kinda aged. Wait a minute, we have a guest. Hello my dear Serena Peck. Eavesdropping on others' conversations is a bad thing to do, he chuckled. Serena backed up in fear as the darkness around began to shift around. She wouldn't have noticed if it weren't for the scene changing around her. Let's give her something to dream about. The floor underneath her gave way and she began to fall. Laughter was coming from her at all sides as things began scratching her from all ends. She tried swatting whatever they were away, but there just wasn't anything there. Serena soon began to panic. She couldn't see where she was, who was causing her pain, and where the bottom of the pit ended. There was only one thing on her mind. It was like a vague memory, but she said it anyway. "Kel!" she screamed. Serena then felt a knot forming her stomach again and something within her released itself. "What? How? You?" Whatever it said next was lost. Serena bolted upright, breathing heavily. That was horrible. She opened her eyes slowly to see scratches covered her entire body. No, how? Serena looked up from her arms to see Elena trembling beside her. One of her hands was placed on Serena's leg. "What's wrong? What happened? You're safe now, that's all that matters," she trailed off. She had a hard time standing up, but refused to sit down. "You should ask Percy to seal those wounds up. Being injured from the dead can prove fatal." Serena looked at her suspiciously. "Wait a minute, how do you know I was scratched by invisible things?" Serena asked, giving her one of those "you better tell me now or I'll make you" looks. But Elena didn't seem to either not notice or care. "I'll be with Gohan. Sherpner and Araza will be here soon to pick us up for the field trip." Then she walked away. Serena looked after with a wave of concern. Did she help me wake up from my dream? She looked back at her arms to see the cuts beginning to turn black. More like a nightmare. "I better get to Percy," Serena told herself before running to where Percy was sleeping. Annabeth and May had been sailing on the ocean for at least 2 days now. They hardly made it past the Bloodhounds alive, let alone survive the huge storm that came in that morning. The good thing she was friends with Percy or Poseidon might not have pulverized them with the waves. "If we keep heading north we'll end up in—" No, my dear child. Chiron is in the west," he informed all of his staff members personally. Annabeth gave her a strange look. She didn't know why, but she didn't fully trust May. It could have just been because she was new to the camp and all, but still, she seemed too calm about their situation. "But Chiron told us, he told you he was going north because he knew Percy would try and follow him. If he followed him in the west, Kronos would send all his monsters to capture him and that new girl Serena." But no matter how many times May said this, there was something that seemed off. But then again, she did understand why Chiron would tell them he was going north instead of west. So she changed courses and headed west. "What did you do to yourself?" Percy asked once he saw Serena's arms. Serena blushed before standing up tall and shifting her eyes to one side. "You think I would do this to myself? Yeah, you caught me, Percy. I'm freaking emo." Percy opened his mouth to say something, but when he saw the anger on Serena's face, he stayed quiet. "Well, let's get to a water source." Godin bursted through the front door and skidded to a stop in the kitchen where Elena and Gohan were eating. He eagerly threw his arms all about. "Hey guys. I want you to meet my new friend, he's outside." Gohan looked up from his cereal. "You made another friend, Godin?" But he wasn't surprised. They were magnets for new people. However, the word people didn't exactly describe Godin's new playmate. Elena and Gohan followed him outside, jaws dropping as they saw a giant maroon dragon. Godin?" Elena began. "You sure he's safe?" She had had bad experiences with dragons and being up close to one didn't help. Godin nodded as he hopped on the dragon. "Yep, I rode him all day yesterday, didn't I, Charlie?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "Charlie? Do you like it? I named him myself," Godin giggled. Elena just shook her head in disbelief. Sometimes she could swear that he was Goku. "I think he's awesome, Squirt. I'm proud of you, I'm sure Dad would be too." Godin's face seemed to brighten over 1,000,000 times. "You really think so?" Gohan nodded. "Yay. All right. This might sting a bit," Percy warned as he made the water creep up on Serena's arms. She nearly growled as all the scratches began to sting. If Percy wasn't healing her right now, there was no doubt she'd knock him out. It took about 5 minutes for all the wounds to go away, and when Percy moved the water back into the sink, Serena shook her hands in long-awaited stretches. She couldn't stand staying still for long, she always needed to move around. "Thanks, Seaweed Brain. Guess I owe you." Percy scowled at the name, but soon went quiet. I'm only letting you call me that because you're Annabeth's sister. Serena seemed to turn bright red in anger. She didn't really like her with her rude attitude and all, but now that Serena knew Annabeth was her sister, she knew why. Serena couldn't help herself and slugged Percy in the arm rather hard. He stumbled a bit before quickly rubbing his arm. Ow! What was that for? For reminding me that I'm Annabeth's sister, that's what. Percy rolled his eyes. Whatever, let's get back to Elena and Gohan. I'm sure they can't wait to learn you're okay now. Gohan. Goten. Up here. They heard Uraza call as Sherpner landed their hovercar next to Charlie. Vital must have heard all the noise as she ran out to greet their friends. Uraza and Sherpner took one look at the dragon before never meeting its gaze again. I don't want to know what you're doing with that thing, Uraza said, obviously shocked. Sherpner looked around frantically, wondering where Serena was. Hey, I thought Serena was here with you guys. Yep. She's inside with Percy. She got hurt last night and he's healing her. Once again Uraza and Sherpner gave them a lost expression. Gohan always forgot they were humans and didn't understand things like this. Sherpner didn't have to wait that long however as both Serena and Percy came out of the house. Sherpner smirked widely before rushing over at Serena's side. She gave him a warning glare, but he was too stupid to take the hint. Hey there, long time no see, he chuckled as he reached up to touch her hair. Your hair looks. Slap. Sharpener fell to the ground with a huge red spot forming. Don't ever touch me. Understand? He rubbed his aching cheek and nodded in understanding. Goten noticed how shiny her hair was and curiosity grew within him. I wonder what it feels like, he smirked to himself before hopping off Charlie and over to Serena. Goten hovered on up and slowly ran his fingers through her hair, his face shocked. Serena looked up at him and chuckled. There were only a few people allowed to touch her like this. Those were her close friends and little kids. Wow. You have soft hair. He cuffed it up and rested his head in it. Feels like a cloud. He trailed off as he rubbed against the strands in his hand. Hey. Why can that brat feel it and I can't? Sherpner shouted in distaste he felt towards Goten at the moment. Because children aren't pervs. Besides, I kids are a lot cuter than you'll ever be, she snapped. Elena ran on up to her, hoping to feel her hair too, but before she could even try to reach up, Serena's cheeks puffed up within her eyes shifted at her from the corner of her eyes. Elena hid her face and quickly ran back over to Gohan. Gohan. She's being mean. You know I don't freakin' like people touching me, Belver. Elena pouted as she looked back up at Goten. Looks like you like it more than you let on. Serena sighed. Hug? Elena smiled and tackled her into a hug. Yay, I feel better now, she chuckled. Vital shook her head in disbelief before looking at her watch. Guys, we better get going or we'll miss the bus. Okay. Elena yelled as she let go of Serena and looked back up at Goten. Hey, am I gonna get a hug? Bye? Goten looked down at her before quickly dropping Serena's silky hair and crashed into Elena's hands, almost knocking her to the ground. Bye-bye. Don't let big dark and ugly hurt you or your friend. I like you two too much. What about your brother? Oh, I know he can take care of himself. Especially if they don't know the first rule. Serena and Percy looked at Goten in confusion. He took the hint and smiled. It's never piss off my brother unless you wanna die. Goten. Watch your language, man. You gotta stop hanging out with Trunks. What about Vital? Goten thought for a moment. Nah, I don't mind if he gets her. Hey, I can hear you. You were supposed to? Goten hollered back as he stuck his tongue out. Goten. Say bye to everyone else, we've gotta go, bro. Goten let Elena go sadly and hugged everyone else, but when he got to Serena, he pulled her in for a bear hug. Her face turned purple as she couldn't breathe. Goten didn't seem to notice, he thought he was just giving her a regular hug. Come back soon. Love you. He quickly let go and flew on Charlie. See you later, Gohan, I'll miss you. Bye, Squirt. And with that, they all crowded in the small hover car and bolted to the school. This way please. An office attendant lead Gohan, Vital, Elena, Serena, Percy, Sherpner, and Uraza on the bus. They arrived at the school no longer than 5 minutes ago and were now boarding for the first assigned place, the new and approved Science Center. Serena didn't think it was going to be anything special. The last time they went to one was in 7th grade, they were bored to death. Guess I'll pass the time bugging Percy. But even as she said that, a feeling strikes her heart. Her face paled a bit. The last time she felt this was when a house got burned down a few blocks over. She always believed it was a coincidence, but she learned that things didn't happen on accident anymore. Whatever burned down that house was searching for her. Serena. Why aren't you answering me? Elena whined. Serena snapped out of her thoughts and looked at the short girl next to her. She giggled a bit. I always knew you were naturally short. Elena blushed in anger. I'm not a freaking house elf. I'm a high elf. Serena still couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't help but be evil sometimes. And not evil as in I'm gonna kill you. It's torturing her friends because they're so close. At least she has some manners. Unlike somebody I know, Percy said back, trying to make Serena start picking on him. Truth to be told, seeing Serena pick on someone else made him jealous. What? Serena stopped up and quickly rolled up her sleeves. Elena noticed this notion, and before Serena could take one more breath, she held her back. Serena. Not here. Not ever. Serena looked at her with her glare of warning. But Elena just looked up at her with eyes glossy. Serena looked at her incuriously. Why is she upset? She knows I'm just fooling around to scare him. Belver. I'm just trying to scare him. What's up with you? Ladies, sit down please while the vehicle is in motion. The bus driver lectured. Elena slowly released her grip around Serena before sitting back down. Serena doing the same. She didn't know if maybe they said something that made her upset, but she didn't dare ask. The pale face was leaving her speechless. Percy sighed and looked out the window. He couldn't stop thinking about Annabeth, Grover, Chiron, and all the campers. They were in danger and they were going on a field trip. It didn't seem right. Don't think of it like that. Percy looked up at Serena and Elena, believing they had said it. When he noticed they hadn't moved, he looked around. Don't fret, young hero. I'm a friend. A friend? Who are you? If I told you, you wouldn't be so inclining to trust me. And why is that? My race is misunderstood to say the least. But I must warn you that when we meet, you'll have to trust me. What? What are you? Why, I only have little time with you, Peruzas Jackson, but heed my warning. Many are after the girl you travel with. With that said, the voice faded. Percy wanted to ask what was after Serena, but he knew it was useless. The voice was gone. Serena stared out the window in deep thought. She kept trying to find out why she would have this feeling, but so far, she couldn't think of any reason and fell asleep. Don't you wish you could escape all your troubles, Serena Peck? Serena heard Kronos ask from an unknown place. She felt weak, tired, and hopeless. Do you ever wish you could escape the world you call home, and have whatever you want? Do whatever you want to do? Serena growled. She may be tired, but there was no way she was gonna let a 1,000-year-old person try and convince her to turn on her friends. Let me go. Her voice trailed off into low whispers. Great. No, he probably thinks I'm weak. Laughter only proved her point. Silly girl. You'll soon realize that your good is actually bad. Until then, he trailed off as Serena felt herself being pulled up into a new scenery, seeing her family having a picnic under the tree. Familiar short strawberry blonde hair and silky smooth black hair shimmered in the sunlight, making her heart race. Come on, Serena. Where've you been, Chief? They chimed. Serena felt herself tear up, something she rarely did before running towards them. But the more she ran, the farther away they got. Serena. Hurry. We miss you. We need you. Serena reached her hand out as she realized she was going nowhere. It was as if she was running in place. Elise. Cicely. Dad. Kai. She stopped in mid-sentence as the whole park engulfed in sudden flames. No. No, 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 no. She yelled and tried to run faster, but to no avail. Serena. We need you. Serena. Serena. Serena shot up and banged her head on the low ceiling of the bus, letting out a painful groan. Serena. You all right? You were having a nightmare? Serena rubbed her forehead in pain before looking down at Elena. If you call getting a new bump on my head okay, then yes, she growled. Elena looked at her worriedly before Scherpner sat down right next to Serena, a huge grin on his face. Hey there, had a nice sleep? I know I did, since all I saw was you. He flirted, unaware of the consequence that was in store for him. Serena gave him a death glare and clenched her fists. Elena knew when she couldn't stop her, so she backed away. I had enough of you, you bastard, Serena yelled. Before Scherpner even had any time to think, Serena punched him in the face, giving him no mercy. He flew out of the chair and into the next, rendering him unconscious. Percy walked up to them and saw the unconscious boy on the ground and knew he tried to flirt with Serena again. Man, I sorta feel bad for that guy. Serena looked up at him angrily. You want some too, seaweed brain? No, I'm just saying he never had a chance. Serena sat back down and unclenched her fists. Elena looked on over at her to see that the nightmare she had was so overwhelmingly sad that all her thoughts were bent on it. She knew she had to do something. Serena couldn't stop thinking about the dream she had. Her friends, her family, everyone she loved could be in danger because of her. This was something she couldn't stand. Could everyone back at home be in danger because of me? Should I go back and protect them? She felt someone lay their head on her lap in a somewhat comforting way and looked down immediately. There she saw Elena, but then again, she wasn't expecting anyone else. Percy looked at the two and smiled. He wished Annabeth and Grover were here. They would love this get-together moment. After what seemed like forever, the bus came to a screeching halt. We're here. Everyone up, the bus driver called to the students. And please take all your belongings with you besides the suitcases, the principal added. Elena got off Serena and grabbed her purse she never left without before they all got off the bus. They all gasped in shock as they weren't expecting it to be so huge. It was about 3 to 4 stories high and stretched at least a mile out. Maybe this wasn't going to be as boring as they thought. Attention everyone, your attention please. The principal yelled as the chosen 15 students hushed immediately. Now once we get in, you all can go to whatever tour or exhibit you want. Just remember though, you must stay with at least one other person. At least we know we won't have a problem, Percy said as Gohan, Vital, Uraza, and an angered Scherpner walked on over to them. Scherpner looked at Serena madly before smiling sweetly. He still thinks he'll win her heart, Percy thought to himself. He kinda felt bad for him, he had no idea what he was getting into. So where do you guys wanna go first? Gohan asked while pulling out a map out of his pocket and held it out for everyone else to see. We need to get at least 3 activities done for the grade, so I was thinking maybe we should get them over with. Over with? Yeah, right. I say we head for the planet exhibit. Scherpner turned to Serena, unless you want to go somewhere else. Serena gave him another glare. Is this guy asking me to kill him? I kinda wanna go to the nature exhibit if it's okay with you guys. I don't mind going alone. Elena offered, but she knew neither Percy nor Gohan would let anyone travel alone with their experiences. I don't think that's such a good idea, Gohan began. Usually when we split up, we get ambushed by some person trying to kill us. Percy looked up at the building. And by seeing how nice this place looks, I say we better stick together. What's up with you guys and getting ambushed? No one's gonna throw food at you, Uraza said, not understanding what they meant. She and Scherpner didn't know about their powers. They were humans after all. Vital crossed her arms. I guess since all of us want to go to different places, we can go in groups of 2 or 3. That way we'll have someone to back us up. Well, I don't know. Well, I do. Let's just all meet up at the food court at 12, okay? Percy nodded yes, but was still uneasy. Serena could relate. She too felt like something bad was gonna happen. And she hoped she was wrong. They all walked in as one group, but they didn't exactly stay together long. Uraza got distracted and walked right into the minerals exhibit as Scherpner went to the space one. The remaining friends stayed together for a good 15 more minutes before they too accidentally wandered off. They weren't even in groups of 2, they were all alone. Percy walked around the aquarium he was in when he stopped suddenly. He could feel something wasn't right about this place. It reeked with the stench of monsters. Guys, I think we should... He turned to see no one there. Wah, what? They were just behind me. He looked around frantically. He was the maze's first victim. Gohan wandered off into the animal section where he saw giant wooden bears, birds, dinosaurs, deers, bunnies, rabbits, squirrels, a breathing wolf. Gohan stopped suddenly. He didn't know if it was just his imagination or if he really did see the statue breathing. Hey guys, is that thing moving? He asked, but when no one answered, he turned to see that he was there alone. What? Vital stumbled in what seemed to be a mechanics room. The funny thing was, she didn't like engineering or anything related to it. Okay. Whose bright idea was this? If this was yours, Sharpener, I'm gonna beat the crap out of you. Vidal growled. But when no reply came back, she turned to see no one there. Where did everyone go? Elena entered a rather huge room that was filled with trees and flowers. The nature exhibit, a sign hanging above the roof read. Nature exhibit. She looked down from the sign and looked at all the things presently there. She knew something was off, she could sense it the minute she entered the building. The sound of something running by caught her attention as she turned towards the end of the room. Wah, what was that? She asked herself. She didn't want to announce it out loud as she was hoping that someone else would hear it too. But as she waited, she felt a dark presence and scowled. It's a trap. She quickly tried to dive back on out the door, but her heart stopped cold as a figure loomed there, smirking ever so evilly. Serena turned the corner of a hallway and ripped her gaze off the ground to find that she had ended up in an old trashed cafeteria. I wonder why they didn't fix this up yet, she asked herself before continuing forward, unaware of eyes watching her from the ceiling. Katrina. Elena growled as she saw the witch that was her arch-enemy's right-hand warrior. You set us up. You knew we would be here, so you enchanted it. Now look who's using her head. She chuckled. Elena clenched her fists in anger. You made it so that the walls consistently changed so that we would get separated. Wait a minute, what did you do to Serena? She snapped, feeling guilty of letting them fall for such a weak trap. I didn't do anything. The assassin on the other hand is taking great joy in rounding her up for me. Elena's eyes widened in much fear. She had only encountered him once before, and she barely made it out alive. Leave Serena alone. I'm afraid we can't do that. She is the prophet child, my dear. She should be thanking you for that, she smirked. Elena looked past Katrina as she now noticed that the walls were moving. If she timed this just right, she could make it to Serena in time. You're right. She can thank me, for tricking you, she yelled as she flew over Katrina's head and darted into another exhibit. Katrina growled and followed, but the walls changed too quickly and found herself in the volcano exhibit. Serena looked around confusingly as she couldn't figure out where she was or where everyone else went. I guess they decided to go to their exhibits alone, she tried to convince herself. But that didn't work. The feeling inside her intensified as she faintly heard someone breathing, but it was too late. Someone or something sliced her back in 4 different places and she fell to the ground instantly. Pieces of her shirt flew everywhere before finding a place on the solid concrete floor. What was that? She asked herself before feeling the something sting in her cuts. Poison. There was no doubt that the weapon that injured her had been poisoned. Elena ran down the hall and up a flight of stairs. She didn't know how or why, but she felt compelled to get to the top floor. She felt something so vague yet familiar. Serena. Percy paced back and forth about the room, still trying to tell what was wrong. The longer he thought about it, the more he felt something get nearer. Serena. Percy immediately turned towards the south exit as he heard the cry. Was that Elena? Serena. Percy heard her cry out again before pulling out Riptide and quickly heading for the exit, but something big, black, and frightening blocked the doorway. Percy skied to a stop as he gulped in fear. With all my rotten luck. There in front of him was a large angry-looking bloodhound that seemed to be licking his lips in hunger. Why does it always have to be me? He complained before jumping at the enemy before him. Elena made it to the top floor and stopped. There were 3 dark and gloomy hallways she had to choose from, but she didn't have time to waste and chose the one on the right. And here I was hoping for a challenge. Serena looked up weakly to see a rather tall man wearing a black jacket and its hood. His long white hair sticking out in places. Just by looking at him for a second would have you running away, but his hands, that was what made you frozen in fear. 4 long metal blades stuck out of his arms like Wolverine. The only difference was that blood dripped from all 8 of the blades. Serena paled instantly. That's my blood. Her thoughts trailed off as the man chuckled and licked the blood off his blades slowly. It would have grossed her out even more, but the situation she was in made her terrified. There was no way of escaping. She was paralyzed from the injury and had no idea where any of her friends were. She tried to reach for the power she had used earlier, but the injured already drained her strength. The man walked towards her again with crazed blue soulless eyes. Serena knew that she was a goner. There was no way possible that she could get out of this one. The man stopped right in front of her and extended the blades out further. She forced her eyes shut, praying to all the gods to help her, but she didn't think they were going to help her. Get away from her, Serena's eyes flashed wide open as she saw Elena brutally kick him in the stomach, but he didn't even seem to flinch. He then slowly turned to Elena and his smirk widened. He obviously remembered her. Elena took a few steps back, trying to figure out what to do next now that she had his attention. She couldn't fight him unless she had a death wish, and the others were probably unaware of what was currently going on. Grr! Gohan turned swiftly around to see the wolf that was supposed to be a statue leap at him, claws ready. Ah! He yelled as he sidestepped just in time to dodge the beast. But it just got ready for another attack. Here I thought statues didn't move. Gohan said nervously before jumping out of the way as the demented wolf leapt again. What the heck is that? And how did it get into the science center? The wolf dog thing jumped and Gohan got prepared to dodge it again, but it suddenly turned into a mist. What? The mist somehow knocked him harshly onto the ground as it took form of the wolf again, snapping at Gohan's head. Luckily he grabbed its neck or he'd be dead about now. The bloodhound that cornered Percy had no chance. As it leapt at him, Percy commanded the water to grab it and keep it underwater till it drowned. The small pool did exactly that. In no time, Percy ran out of the aquarium and was about to head on upstairs when he passed by the animal exhibit to see something on the floor. Taking a peek inside, he immediately realized it was Gohan, Dot and another bloodhound. Elena gulped as her thoughts raced, trying to figure out how to outsmart the assassin. But even the last time she faced him, she figured out he was smarter than he looked. Her thoughts were interrupted when he sliced his claws towards her so fast that she barely dodged it in time. But it ripped her shirt a little. The assassin, however, kept on attacking, swinging both his hands at her at one time. Elena barely dodged each one as it kept grazing against her skin. Kendall, Serena weakly mumbled as she tried with all her strength to at least get to her hands and knees. She couldn't stand not being able to help. Here her friend was giving her life to save her when all she could do was lie on the ground and watch. The assassin soon had Elena up against the wall and tried to pin her there, but she quickly ducked down just in time and his blade got stuck. He glared at her and forced the blade out of the wall quickly. Elena then jumped up, but he grabbed her arm and forcefully threw her in one of the corners. Dazed, Elena weakly looked up to see that the assassin had her cornered. She tried to summon her powers, but soon forgot that she could only do that with the heart of Earth, which was, with her luck, missing. The man chuckled as he noticed the look of fear on Elena's face and forced one of his blades through her right arm. She screamed in agonizing pain and Serena's face paled.
Kendall, the assassin ripped the blade out of her arm and let the 14-year-old slide to the floor in shock. He knew he was forbidden to kill her or Serena, but he still wanted to have a little fun. Remembering his task, he walked towards Serena again and licked the mixture of blood from his knives. Serena finally forced herself to sit up and glared at the assassin approaching her. Hatred, anger, fear, her thoughts became bent on these three things as she tried to gather enough strength to at least land a punch on him. But something happened that no one expected to see. Especially the assassin. The necklace around Serena's neck began to glow a shade of calming baby pink light. The man stopped immediate as he marveled this new discovery. He knew what it was, but he didn't quite understand why it was happening. He glanced at Elena to see that there was no necklace around her neck before turning back to Serena. This is an interesting turn of events, he whispered to himself before quickly throwing a punch at Serena. But his hand became suspended in air before it got even close to her. He tried to pull it back, but found it impossible. Serena looked at him and raised her hand. Without any effort, sound, or motion at all, a powerful wind blew him into the wall, causing him to get stuck. The light soon faded and Serena collapsed where she was. She felt so exhausted and tired, it was as if she had fought off an entire army. Elena looked up from her injury to see what Serena had done. She would have been proud, but it only proved her fears true. Slowly getting up, she hobbled over to Serena despite the pain she felt in her arm. You all right? She asked Serena. Serena looked up at her with, "What do you mean am I all right?" looks. She hated those the most because then she went all motherly on her. Serena opened her mouth to say something, but stopped cold as she heard the clicking of rocks. Elena froze too as she slowly turned around, face paled. Just my luck, Percy muttered to himself and rushed to Gohan's aid. He thought he's been stealthy enough to sneak up on the hound without it noticing, but as always, he was wrong. The bloodhound jumped out of the way and Percy skied to a stop. Gohan stood back up immediately as the bloodhound leapt at Percy.
His eyes widened in shock as he wasn't expecting it to attack so soon and sidestepped just in time. The bloodhound rammed into a bunch of old-looking books about animals when Gohan saw this opportunity immediately. Kamehameha. He unleashed a small yet powerful energy wave he learned from his father. The bloodhound didn't even have time to think before it was hit dead on by the attack. Books turning to ashes. Percy looked wide-eyed at what Gohan had done as he couldn't believe it. But like he said, he couldn't believe. The bloodhound rose from the smoke and leapt in anger at the stunned Gohan. Percy knew that Gohan didn't know what to do, so he threw Riptide like a spear, piercing the beast right in the chest. It howled in pain and shriveled up on the floor till it was nothing but a pile of ashes. Gohan and Percy breathed heavily as they looked upon where their enemy had fallen. Bloodhounds. Forgot they can only be killed by magical swords, Percy sighed. The assassin pulled himself out of the wall and was now dusting all the white powder off of him, and when he looked up, let's just say that if looks could kill, both Serena and Elena would have been long gone. U.S. He yelled in a frightening voice before he formed a huge electrical beam and shot it at the girls. Chris. Elena yelled in her head and shut her eyes along with Serena. There was no way they would survive this. They were already weakened and unable to move in time. Galagus. A young male voice rang out as Elena felt someone grab and shield her from the blast. Serena opened her eyes in curiosity to see a very familiar boy holding out one of his hands as the lightning zoomed out into different directions, the other grasping onto Elena in a protective manner. The assassin scowled in distaste as the boy glared at him with his blue loyal angered eyes. Now, he yelled as Serena saw a gothic girl with black hair hop over them with a scary-looking shield and lightning spear. This is for Zeus, she shouted as she stabbed the assassin in the neck with the bolt and landing behind him. She then slowly stood up and closed her shield as the assassin's body turned into shadows that faded away, the lightning bolt sticking out of the cement. Serena didn't know what to think of the two newcomers, especially the girl. Both she and Elena tried their hardest to survive against that demon when it only took her one blow to finish him off. The lightning bolt changed back into a metal spear and pulled it out of the ground before heading on over to them. Elena looked on up at the boy that held her protectively and smiled in overwhelming joy. Chris, she whispered faintly before grasping her arm in pain. He immediately saw the wound and gave her a grim look. How bad did he hurt you? Chris asked before inspecting the hole in her arm. He was able to go through my arm. Guess it's not as bad as last time though, she tried to say reassuringly, but it didn't quite come out that way. But Serena needs more medical attention. I don't know how badly he got her. Chris looked at Serena to see that her face was already paled even more than it had been when he got there. Talia, can you find the injured so I can heal them? Sure, but we gotta hurry. I can smell monsters from all the way up here, she said before kneeling down to Serena. Hey you. Serena gave her a weak glare, but she obviously didn't notice it. Where are you hurt? Despite the way this girl called her, you, she knew she had to put up with her. My ba, was all she could muster at this point. She could feel the poison traveling and shutting half of her systems. Luckily, Talia knew what she was talking about and lifted her shirt up from the back only. Get your mind out of the gutter, people, it's only the back. She's got 4 slashes on the back, and by how much blood she's lost, I'd say they're really deep. Okay. Be right there. He then turned his full attention to Elena and shook his head in disbelief. You know, I thought I could leave you alone for one day, one foo. Chris, watch your language, Elena spat. She hated it when people cuss, remember? Chris sighed in disbelief and placed 2 hands above the wound. This may sting a bit, sorry, he forewarned as his hands emitted a warm, promising golden light. Serena immediately remembered the boy that saved both Percy and her from the torn-down elementary school. So that's why he looks so familiar, he's that golden boy. Elena forced her eyes shut as she felt a horrible sting as it finally closed. Chris drew his hands back and smiled. Is that better? Elena nodded and Chris ran over to Serena. He studied the wounds in great detail and nodded grimly. These are deep. I may not be able to heal these fully. Elena nearly jumped up as she turned to face Chris. What do you mean, not fully? You know what happens when you can't heal the assassin's strikes? Chris looked down as he recalled what happened to the last person he wasn't able to heal. I know, but I can at least try. He held out his hands and concentrated deeply. The light soon appeared once more, and Serena's face contorted in discomfort. She could feel the poison being forced out of her, and let me tell you, it was not pleasant. It was as if a mosquito was biting you over and over again. Elena looked at Serena to see some color was beginning to return to her face and then looked up at Chris with a smile. It didn't last long as she could tell Chris was beginning to lose it. His energy was depleting, and fast. Chris, she trailed off as she stopped herself. Disturbing someone while they were performing magic was dangerous and could ultimately cause the person to die. Serena soon felt all the poison drained from her body, but the deep bloody gashes were still there. Chris began to tremble and eyes drooped. Talia became extremely concerned and looked at Elena, hoping that she'd order him to pull away, but before she could say anything, the light faded and Chris pulled back. I did the best I could. He trailed off before falling over a bit, but Talia caught him. He weakly looked up at her with appreciation clearly written on his face. Do you feel any better, Serena? Elena asked. Serena slowly felt her strength returning and sat up, wiggling her fingers to make sure they were still working. Yeah, I think so. She reached and touched her back to find that the scratches had vanished, leaving her with smooth skin once again. That's a relief, Chris weakly stated and laughed a little bit. Elena kneeled down beside him and gave him a huge hug. Thanks for saving both me and Serena, I owe you. Don't be silly, I'm supposed to protect you, I'm your guardian, he said sweetly back before his smile faded into a devious grin. And you know what? I'm not surprised you landed against a wall. Everyone including Serena bursted out into laughter as Elena blushed madly in anger. Oh, be quiet. Vital stepped out of the mechanics exhibit and crossed her arms. She didn't like being ditched. Especially by her own boyfriend. When I get my hands on him I'm gonna... Her thoughts stopped as she saw Percy and Gohan dart across the hallway. Hey! Get back here, you ditchers, she yelled before taking off after them. You're a demigod, aren't you? Talia asked Serena. Serena turned to her with a, what do you think? Face. Yeah, apparently I'm the daughter of Athena. Talia's eyes went wide in realization. So you're the prophet child then? Why is everyone calling me a freakin' PROHET child? I can take care of myself, thank you. Serena shouted, getting annoyed being referred to by the childish name. She was 15 for Pete's sake, not 4. You're called the prophet child because you were blessed with elfin magic. You see, there was a prophecy after you were born that Athena's daughter would be a weapon to either prevent or begin a war within the gods and mortals. Sounds kinda like Percy's destiny, Talia added. In a way, it is. No matter what decision Percy makes, there will be a war. Serena, however, is the one chosen to finish it. Elena explained and glanced over at the uneasy Serena. That's why Kronos wants her. If he can lure her to his side, she can make him win the war Percy will start. You know, you're kinda making Percy sound like a bad person. Chris injected to try and tease Elena. He didn't fail. Hey, I'm trying my best to explain this here. So shush? Chris shrugged his shoulders, trying to hold back a chuckle. Elena blushed. So yeah, that's enough for one day. She trailed off as Percy, Gohan, and Vital entered the room. They glanced around to see the disaster they made before spotting Chris and Talia. These girls got themselves in trouble again, didn't they? Percy asked in a rather amused tone. Serena shot him a glare. I could have taken care of myself, humph. Sure you could, wise girl. Hey, that reminds me, why aren't you at Camp Half-Blood? You on a quest or something? Talia asked. Percy and Serena immediately shifted uncomfortably at the question. Talia's blood ran cold as she knew something bad had happened when she was away. What is it, Percy? Percy didn't dare meet her eyes. He knew how mad she was going to get once she learned the camp she protected for over 7 years was reduced to nothing but ashes and all the ones they loved were either captured or gone. We were ambushed by the dragons and some warriors with amazing powers. The camp's gone, along with everyone else. That's a lie. Percy looked at her with complete shock as her voice was no longer the tough tomboy one. It was as if she was a little girl again. I wish it was. There were only a few people left that didn't die or get captured. That's me, Serena, Annabeth, and May. Talia clenched her fists in anger. It can't be. I should have been there. I should have still been the tree. Little tears began to form in her eyes. Something not even Serena expected to see. My friends, my only home. Little sparks of electricity began to form around her. Percy quickly knew what was about to happen. Talia, stop it. You've got to calm down. But it was useless. She was in too much emotional pain. Everyone, get away from Talia unless you want to be barbecued. He hollered on over to Serena, Chris, and Elena. You don't have to tell me twice. Chris hollered back before he picked Elena up and flew across the room. Serena, however, stayed where she was at, staring sadly at Talia. Serena, what are you doing? Percy yelled, but she seemed to take no notice as she stood up slowly. Elena looked at her with much worry. Come on Serena, you can do it, she encouraged along with Chris. Serena slowly walked towards the girl so she wouldn't get electrocuted, but it was extremely difficult. The wind blew around fiercely, lightning shot in every direction, and she could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. This wasn't enough to stop her though. Serena! Percy yelled as he leapt forward, but Gohan pulled him back. You can't, you'll get killed. Just let Serena do what she thinks is best. Percy looked up at Gohan before looking down at the ground. Gohan was right. Whatever Serena was planning to do must be for a good reason. Talia could feel herself lose control over her powers and the building began shaking violently. Get out of here, she cried to all her friends as the building was beginning to fall apart. Despite the warning, everyone stayed where they were and watched as Serena jumped and grasped a hold of Talia, closing her eyes shut as she could feel the electricity shocking her. She didn't care though and pulled Talia in for a tighter hug. Serena! Talia! Percy yelled. Talia looked down to see that Serena was trying to comfort her even though she was getting hurt in the process. Why would she do this for me? She asked herself before beginning to calm down. The lightning soon stopped and the wind settled down. When Serena was sure Talia was calmed, she let go of her and looked up at her with her own set of saddened eyes. Please don't be sad. There's still a way we can save them. Talia looked at her in confusion before smiling. Yeah, I guess there is. There are many prisoners, she smiled back. Elena smiled. She had never seen Serena act this way before to a complete stranger that made a bad first impression. Guess she could relate to her. Would all the students from Orange Star High School please report back to the buses for their departure? Thank you. They heard a lady announce on the intercom. Well, I guess we better head on out. But how is Chris and Talia gonna come with us? They aren't part of the school? Talia smirked deviously. Leave that to me. It only took then about 5 minutes to make it back to the buses since the building was no longer enchanted. And when they first stepped out, they were glad to see the sun for once. Hey Gohan! Vital! Uraza shouted as she ran up to them with a smile playing on her lips. Where have you guys been? Sherpner and I have been searching for you since 3. What? It's already 5. Gohan asked as it felt like it had only been an hour. Uraza and Sherpner gave them a weird look. Of course dummy. Her gaze drifted upon Chris and Talia. When did you get here Chris? And who's the new girl? I just got here a few minutes ago, and this is Talia, our friend. Well it's nice meeting you, I'm Uraza and this is Sherpner. Whatever, he mumbled as he looked at Serena with anger yet desire. Somehow I'll make you mine. Everyone please board the bus. The principal sang out, obviously excited about staying at the Satan Inn. Well whatever you were planning you might want to do now, we have to go, Gohan whispered. Talia smirked. Don't worry, I've got this under control. Like you did in the cafeteria? Chris giggled. Oh shut up. They all began to enter the bus, but when the principal saw Chris and Talia, he stopped them. Excuse me, but you can't get on. You don't go to this school. They all watched as Talia held out her hand in front of her and a slight wind blew. Yes we do. I'm Talia and this is Chris, remember? The principal gave them a strange look. And wait a minute, oh yes, I remember you now. Sorry for the confusion. Go on ahead. The principal moved out of the way and Talia put her hand back down. The wind stopped. Chris and Talia then took a seat alongside Elena and Serena, laughing the whole way.
That never gets old. What never gets old? Serena asked looking at them suspiciously.
Oh, no one told you Well you see, there is this thing called the mist that makes mortals unable to see into our world. And since we're half-bloods, we can bend the mist to make them see and think whatever we want. Really? Does it actually work? Talia winked. Yep. The principal now thinks Chris and I go to your school and we're invited to go on this trip. Do you think it would work on teachers when we don't do the homework? Serena asked as everyone fell anime style. Typical Serena, Elena chuckled. The bus ride lasted a good 45 minutes before they arrived at the Satan Inn. And let me tell you, it didn't have a 5-star rating for nothing. It was at least 5 stories high with a huge pool about a mile long with hot tubs, saunas, masseuses, tennis courts, and basketball courts, everything imaginable. Guys, I think I just died and went to heaven, Araza screeched. Everyone else nodded in agreement besides Vital, who was shaking her head in disbelief. I've been her a million times and it hasn't changed. Well, that's because your dad is Hercule. We on the other hand have never set foot in a 5-star hotel like this. Araza snapped back before getting overexcited again. Okay class or students. I've paired you guys up into groups that you will be roommates with until the end of the trip. The first group is Teresa, Shelby, Araza. Who do you think you'll be paired up with? Elena asked Serena. Serena smirked playfully. I don't know, but I hope it's not you. Hey. The second group will be Vital, Talia, Elena, and Serena. Yay. Elena jumped up in joy. Vital just smiled as she was pleased with the matchup, as long as Serena and her didn't fight. The third group will be Gohan, Percy, and Chris. Sweet. Chris said and gave Percy a high five. Everyone else I didn't all will be in a room together. Now please come get your room keys. The group of friends walked with each other until they reached the stairs. The boys' room was located on the left and the girls' rooms were on the right. See ya guys at dinner. Elena smiled. Yeah, Serena, make sure this klutz doesn't hurt herself, "K?" Chris chuckled. You can count on me. Hey, whose side are you on? Yours. Serena trailed off as her eyes shifted back and forth. This is our room. Serena gasped as everyone behind her stared at it in awe. When Vital mentioned it seemed like any other hotel she's been to, they pictured one of those cheap hotels with a bed and TV. Man, were they wrong. There were 4 king-size feather beds with 4 fluffy pillows. The sheets seemed to be completely made out of real silk and their own personal nightstand stood beside each bed. On the other end of the room that was bigger than Gohan's house, there was a huge plasma TV that hung off the wall with a CD, DVD, and VHS player underneath. On the far right corner was the kitchen area with a refrigerator, a marble stove, and a microwave, a small golden table with matching chairs in the center of the area. One might say, this is a paradise, but once they reached the 4 separate bathrooms, they were flabbergasted. A huge bathtub that could fit at least 10 people sat at the right-hand corner while the large shower with real crystal glass was set up on the left side. The sinks were pure gold and turned on by saying, on. Pie, pinch me. Elena managed to muster. Serena quickly did what she asked, earning a glare from Klutz. Well guys, are you gonna stare at the room all day or are you gonna start unpacking? Our luggages are in the closets. With that said, everyone quickly followed suit and in less than 10 minutes, had everything unpacked and ready for dinner. You said you come here all the time, right? Then does that mean you're rich? Yeah, but I can care less about wealth. If any of you need any cash, just ask me. But don't use me to your advantage or I'll have all the cops at your doorstep. Talia nodded in understanding before gazing around the room again. This was probably the first time she'd ever seen anything so fancy in her entire life. That reminds me, Talia. Who is your godparent? Vital asked, drawing everyone's attention. Talia looked down uncomfortable as she didn't know whether she should tell them or not. Talia will tell us at dinner. That way she won't have to explain twice, Elena suggested, earning a thankful smile from Talia. Vital looked at her watch to see it read 6:30. We have 30 minutes till we have to meet the boys for dinner. What do you guys want to do in the meantime? Everyone thought for a moment or two. There was so much they wanted to do, but unfortunately, they wouldn't have been able to do in one night. Hey, maybe we should explore this place until we find something we haven't done before. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Elena blurted out excitedly. Sounds good to me. As long as we make sure you stay clear of those walls and steps. Serena giggled as everyone broke into laughter. Elena sighed. Ha ha, very funny, let's go then. I can give you guys the grand tour and even take you to places that are off limits to all the other guests. Everyone smiled and followed Vital out. The boys stared around at their room like they've been hypnotized or something. It was fairly similar to the girls, but they had a few game systems along with the CD, DVD, and VHS player. This is gonna rock, Chris exclaimed before falling on his bed, head first. Percy headed to his own bed and noticed that their bags were already there. Hey guys, I think we should unpack and then meet up with the girls before dinner. Okay, Gohan and Chris said from their beds before unpacking. Percy turned to the bathroom to notice the shower. Hey guys, I need to make a quick call. Be right back. He grabbed 2 drachma coins and ran off into the bathroom. Gohan gave a confused look. Why does he need to make a call from the bathroom? It's not a regular phone call. Half-bloods are forbidden to use phones unless they want to get attacked by monsters. Why's that? It's basically saying, I'm right here, come eat me, Chris explained. Gohan still didn't quite understand, but nodded in understanding anyway before following Percy to see what he was doing. Percy turned the shower on and reflected a mirror upon it until a rainbow became present. Here I go, he told himself as he threw the coin at the rainbow. Iris, O goddess of the rainbow, accept my offering. Percy then threw the coin in the rainbow and it disappeared. Show me Sally Jackson. At first, nothing happened and Gohan began to think that Percy was going insane. But then all of a sudden, an image began to form into the water and a woman writing something at a desk appeared. Mom, Percy said happily as the lady looked up. Percy, oh my god, do you know how worried I was when no one at camp answered my Iris message? Where are you anyway? And who's that behind you? This is Gohan, he's my new friend. Percy's eyes then began to shift uncomfortably. His mom noticed this, and about camp, it's destroyed. All the color drained from her face. Wah, what happened? Percy told her the whole story including them traveling to another planet to find reinforcements and how he meant Gohan. When she learned that he was a Saiyan, she seemed to become relieved. Even mentioning their old friends Elena and Chris settled her worried spirits down. I'm so glad you're okay. Oh, I'm so sorry you always have to be the hero, dear. And thank you Gohan for helping us, we owe you. Gohan blushed a bit. I haven't done anything yet Mame. But I'm coming back with your son to help get everyone back. Let the gods watch over all of you. They heard a knock on her door. Sally, are you in there? They heard a male voice call. Be right there, I've gotta go Percy, Paul's here. Take care honey and stay safe. Tell all your friends I said hi and best luck. Sally, coming. Bye Percy, love you, and the Iris message disappeared. And this is the grand hall where they hold the honorary dinners at. They might sound fun, but they're extremely boring. Vidal explained as they left the room and went out back. To their great surprise, they saw all these different types of stands put up like you would see at festivals. That's right, I completely forgot. Serena looked at the spoiled girl in curiosity. Forgot what? It's the week of the countdown of the Cell Games. 7 years ago, my father beat Cell, and they're celebrating it all week. Elena frowned in distaste. So that's why Hercule wanted the school to go to this field trip. On Friday, we'll be going to the Cell Game arena to honor his bravery. Vidal shook her head in disbelief. She used to be proud of her father and wanted to be just like him. Then when she met Gohan, that all changed. She learned her father was a fake and took credit from others' accomplishments. Mostly Gohan's. I still can't believe my father lied to me, his own daughter. He doesn't sound like a guy the first would get along with, Serena inputted as she saw how angry everyone was getting. That's for sure. Once you meet him, you'll want to knock him out. Can I then? Elena shook her head. No, I'm afraid not. Everyone here doesn't want to believe in powers, so they believe in the guy who can explain things to them and protect them. Elena explained as Talia growled. My father would have killed him if he was on our planet. Vidal gave her a glare. Hey, don't be wishing my father dead. He may be a liar, but he's still my dad. Talia rolled her eyes. If he's a liar and treats you badly, what's the point in keeping him alive? He'll make a stupid mistake one day and you'll be the paying for it. Talia replied distastefully. Vidal looked like she wanted to rip Talia's head off that instant, but a flashing blue light caught their attention. Two true origins, Serena read aloud. What do you think it is? Sounds kinda weird. I think it's one of those places that tells you those fortunes. Vidal replied. I've been to one before, but it wasn't real. What did the person say? Talia asked, wondering how a mortal could read someone's fortune. They said I was going to follow in my father's footsteps and meet a man at the age of 12 that I would marry. But I didn't meet anyone until I was 18. Not to mention that I never want to be like my father anymore. Elena's eyes glittered in excitement. Sounds cool. I want to see what they think of us. It'll be funny when they see something that won't ever happen in a lifetime. She laughed. Everyone gave her a weird look as they couldn't believe she, out of all the people there, wanted to pull a small prank on someone. What? You don't think I can pull pranks or something? She said, hurt. Without wasting another minute, they all decided to go into the tent. It was pitch black at first. Serena held her hand out in front of her to see if she could still see it, but she couldn't even make out an outline. How can it be this dark? Talia was cut off as a light all of a sudden turned on in front of them. It wasn't very bright considering it was hung above the roof and only lit up a table. Come sit down, young ladies, and I shall read your fortunes. They looked around as they couldn't figure out who had said that. But when they looked closer in the left side of the table, they could barely make out a lady with long lavender hair that wore a Chinese veil and a red kimono. Don't worry, I've got enough tables for all of you. As soon as she said that, 4 chairs came out of nowhere and appeared by the table. They all gave uneasy glances before taking a seat in front of the mysterious lady. Now, who would like to go first? She asked as they were finally able to see her eyes. Everyone stared into them in shock. They were a soothing moonlight color that seemed to make you feel at home no matter how troubled or uncomfortable you were. I will. Vidal said bravely. The girl nodded in approval before closing her eyes. My name is Luna. It's an honor to meet you, Vidal Satan. She then looked at the shocked Vidal with those same eyes. I've heard many great things about you. Let's see what's in store for you. She trailed off as the table began to glow a purple color. It seems as if you were defiantly a brave and courageous one. The color soon faded to a pink color. I see you have a loved one by the name of Gohan. Oh yes, he's a wonderful man. Treat him well. You two have a bright future. Vidal blushed at this. The color then turned to a blackish-reddish color. Luna hesitated at first, but then went on with the fortune. Being in love, however, will bring many great battles. Be careful who you befriend, and who you make enemies with. Vidal looked at the lady in confusion before the table turned to its original color. Wait a minute, aren't you supposed to tell me my future? Young Vidal, if there's one thing you will learn today, it's that knowing your future will cause more harm than good. I will say this though. When the all else fails, use your surrounds to your advantage. Everyone looked at Luna with the same confused expression. She had been so accurate with Vidal's readings that they became a bit uncomfortable. Luna seemed to notice this. There's nothing to be afraid of, young warriors. I know more than I let on. Now who will go next? No one volunteered. Especially since she called them warriors. Would you like me to choose for you then? Everyone nodded immediately. Okay then, how about you? She looked directly at Talia. Young Talia. Talia gave the lady a warning look, and she just smiled. The table then began to glow a deep golden color. You're defiantly a brave one. Sacrificing yourself to save your friends Annabeth and Grover from certain death. You're lucky to have a father that would preserve what was left of you and turned you into a tree. Talia seemed like she was about to pounce on the fortune teller, but she kept her anger under control. Bravery comes in everyone, but only the pure ones can say they have it with honor. Remember this, dear Talia, it'll save your life. The table then turned to a deep moonlight blue color. You'll soon be forced to make a hard decision that will ultimately choose who the prophecy of the gods goes to. You, or Percy Jackson. Look deep within your heart and choose wisely. Don't forget about when your birthday is. The table then stopped glowing and returned to its original color. I know you along with Serena and Percy are on a quest to save your camp with new allies. So when the time is right, pull the lever of uncertainty. Lever of uncertainty? She asked. But Luna completely ignored her. Now, will Serena Peck go next? Or will it be? I'll go. Serena spoke out suddenly, anxious to know what she could tell her. Luna studied her for a moment before a serious face shone upon her glowing face. Serenity Peck, daughter of Athena, you have a very difficult road set before you. Your strength, wisdom, bravery, courage, and loyalty will be tested. Will you pass? Or will you fail? This will be determined before the altar. Now let's see if we can help clear some things up. The table immediately turned into the color silver. Wisdom, your wisdom runs deep, young one. Trust it, and it'll never fail you. She trailed off as the table soon turned to a deep purple. Your loyalty for your friends is strong, but it will be tested as well. You must remember the world will depend on your choices. The table then turned a bloody red color and Luna's voice went deeper. One you care about will be killed during your quest, but you must look over it and keep going. Kronos wants you to be blinded by your own anger and revenge.
Don't let yourself fall into his trap. There is always a way to bring them back.
The table then turned to a light pink color like it did for Vital. You'll find that the one you love loves you back, and that two will be put to the test. It's a dangerous relationship, but if you truly do care for one another, you'll prevail. The table then turned into a dreamy blue color, causing everyone to gasp. You must travel through the land of dreams alone. There you will find the answers to your problem. And when the time comes, you'll need to face the one behind this alone. The table soon turned back to its original color and Luna stared at Serena sternly. But you're never alone. Remember that. Your friends and family will be fighting by your side. Always. This whole reading left Serena so stunned she was frozen in deep thought. Luna then stared right into Elena's eyes, her smiling face turning sour. And now it's your turn, dear Elena, she began. Elena didn't know why, but when she said her name, it seemed like it was in sarcastic means. The table began to glow a golden color at first before quickly turning into a dark green forest color. Luna seemed to nod to herself as if she was confirming something. You're one with nature, in which case also means the entire planet. If you ever find yourself lost or in need to find something, always remember that connection, young high elf. The table then began to turn a deep purple. Just like your friends, you have loyalty that will have you peruse anything that will help your friends. This, however, can cause your downfall. Gray was the next color to appear. Luna gave all of them a grim expression. This is for all of you, even though it resorts to mainly Elena. Be careful whom you trust, or else you'll be destroyed. The color then changed to a pure pink. Love, you've already found your true love, now your fates are intertwined with one another. The table then turned white. Hope, what you've lost will always be a part of you. And it's closer to you than you think. Never give up hope. Or you'll give up your soul. The color then changed into a bright red that seemed to be giving off a low wind. Everyone became uneasy at this. Horrible battles range around you and your friends. The one that seeks domination will try and fulfill a prophecy that has been long forgotten, but will soon come up again. You must stay hidden away so he may soon forget about you, young Amethy. Elena's heart stopped cold. But I'm afraid he'll never forget. But before she could finish, Elena darted out of the tent so fast that her friends hardly saw her take her leave. Serena gave Luna a furious look before running on after her. Talia slammed her fists on the table in anger. What did you do? You're no mortal, you're a monster. Luna gave her a resentful look before the room became brighter and revealed who she really was. Talia held her breath once she saw the true her. Artemis. Follow the advice I gave you and think about everything I told you. Sorry if I upsetted Amethy, but it had to be done. Amethy? That was Elena. I'm afraid not. Her real name is Amethy. You'll understand everything soon. Good luck, young heroes. I'll be watching. She trailed off as she faded away. Your mom seems nice. A lot cooler than mine. Gohan smiled as the iris message disappeared. Percy blushed a bit at the comment. Everyone tells me that. Thanks, but she can be overprotective most of the time. Aren't all parents? He laughed back. Chris was staring at the ceiling, gathering his thoughts. There was so much going on and so many dangers. The idea of Elena being with them on this quest was frightening him. But then again, he had to admit he was always overprotective when it came to her safety. Sure, he had to make sure that Big, Dark and Ugly didn't find her or her friend Serena, but sometimes he wished they could all return home. No more fear, terror, danger. A shock coursed through his entire body, causing him to sit up immediately. How can she be in danger right now? She's supposed to be still in the room. Chris turned to the bathroom to see Percy and Gohan walk out laughing. Guys, I think we should check on the girls. Percy and Gohan exchanged confused looks. But they're fine, Chris. I'm sure they can take care of themselves, especially with Talia there. Chris looked down at the blankets, considering the thought. Still, I feel as if they're in some sort of trouble or emotional stress. I know it sounds weird, but I've got this connecty. He stopped as he jumped out off the bed and dashed out the door. Percy and Gohan quickly followed suit, hoping Chris was wrong. Kendall. Serena called out into the fading daylight. She had been following her friend for at least 5 minutes before she lost sight of the terrified Elena. Man, when I get my hands on her, she trailed off into mutters before turning right. Elena rushed into a garden and stood in the center, trying to catch her breath, but even when she didn't look too good. Her face was pale, her eyes were wide with shock, and she was trembling all over. How did she know that name? She kept her gaze at the grass below. And if she knew, who else does? Gohan and Percy ran out of the hotel room and tried to spot Chris, but he was long gone. Great. Now how are we supposed to find him? Percy sighed frustrated. He didn't like the way Chris seemed before he took off. The last time he saw him that way was when they were caught in a trap set up by a Cyclops that sided with his and Elena's arch-enemy. Gohan suddenly took off running to his left as if he picked up on an invisible trail. Come on, Percy. Percy gave him a look of annoyance before following suit. They had been running for almost 5 minutes when they saw the center of the hotel in view. Tables and stations were everywhere around the block, but they couldn't stop and look around. There he is, Gohan hollered before slowing down to a brisk walk as they reached a dumbfounded-looking Chris. What is it? But even as those words escaped his mouth, he felt the weird energy emitting from the tent. They couldn't quite figure out why, but they didn't have to wait long. The feeling disappeared and the white tent opened and Talia and Vidal walked out. Talia was the first to notice the guys there and gave them a glare. What are you guys doing here? Is Elena and Serena with you? Chris asked, ignoring Talia's question. Percy thought she would hit him with a small lightning bolt, but she seemed to flood with worry instead. She was, but she ran off. Chris's expression hardened. Tell me everything that happened. Talia motioned for them to follow them into the tent with them so no mortals or enemies would eavesdrop on their conversation. Talia explained how they found the fortune-teller's tent in the first place and how Artemis described most of them in exact detail. But when she mentioned the name she called Elena, Chris's face filled up with terror. Talia and Vidal thought he'd run out too, but he stayed and listened to the conclusion of the story where it was only Artemis. Chris cursed in the ancient language. She's always challenging Elena. She thinks she'll make a good hunter. Hunter? She can't even throw. She can. In fact, she has a deadly aim. It's just she has to act ungraceful and weak to make sure he doesn't figure out she's the one he's looking for. I'm just worried about Serena. She's not afraid to show her true strength from anyone. It's only a matter of time before that asshole comes to capture her. Look who's been abandoned by her so-called friends. Elena's eyes went wide as she recognized the voice and turned to see Katrina sitting on the gray brick wall. Oh great, it's the Queen of S herself. She grumbled. My friends would never abandon me, unlike those pitiful mindless zombies. Wow, I never knew a helpless kitten could have a lion's bite. Oh shut up. Save me the trouble and leave already. Katrina smirked playfully. I wouldn't count on it. Besides, we're here on truths. She held out her hand as a small white flag appeared in her hand. At least, for now. We? Who's we? She asked herself before feeling a dark presence. There was no way of describing how it felt besides saying that she wanted to crawl in a hole and not dare leave it again. We just want to ask you something. A voice whispered in her ear. Elena froze and couldn't feel her limbs moving at all. A cold hand pressed against her neck and moved the hair out of the way. Such a frail species, I must say. Limax, Elena stuttered in a beyond scared voice. Serena stopped running midway down another section of the hotel when she felt a horrifying presence coming from the garden. That's when it hit her. The garden. Of course. Elves are obsessed with nature. She then bolted to try and find the nearest entrance. Chris paled over 10 times as he began trembling. Everyone looked at him with much concern before he sped off, cursing under his breath. The others stared after him in confusion. What's wrong with him? Percy asked before Talia sped off after him. He looked up at Gohan to see that he bore a serious expression. Something's here, we better check it out. So, will you join us or not? The cursed man whispered in her ear once again. Even if she wanted to move, he had casted a charm that made her unable to move her body. Something he loved doing to his victims. This isn't truths if you remobilized me, she snarled, trying to say bravely, but it didn't quite come out that way. He seemed to notice immediately. I guess you're right, he nodded at Katrina, who burned the flag instantly. Guess we're on official business now. Will you join me or die trying to save this pathetic world of yours? I would rather hear thousands of Apollo's poems before I joined you, Limax looked disappointed. Hearing Apollo's poems seemed like hell itself broke loose. Everyone agreed to this. Well then, guess I'll have to persuade you better. He placed his hand against Elena's neck once again, but this time it seemed to be burning her skin off. She fought back tears and the urge to call for help, but the pain was becoming unbearable. Hey! Get your hands off her! Before Limax could even turn around, he felt a knife pierce his back. He could have just pulled it right on out, but that would ruin all his fun. I'll be back for both of your answers. He trailed off before turning into dust. Elena felt control over her body again and held her neck in pain. Serena stepped in front of her and gave Katrina a look of hatred. You want some too, you bastard? Katrina growled at the name before jumping off the brick wall, her eyes catching Serena's. My master has a message for you too. She walked forward with a crazed expression. Serena just backed up a little and held an arm out to make sure she didn't try and charge Elena again. Since you are new to this little game, we want to offer you a chance to go on the winning side. A side that has no rules, riches beyond anyone's wildest dreams, and become more powerful than the gods themselves. Just pledge yourself to Lord Limax and we will help him conquer the universe. Or be a naive jerk and refuse. Serena rolled her eyes despite the anger she felt towards the name Katrina called her. It's always the entire universe, man. Even when people say it in real life it still manages to sound lame. Katrina saw Chris and the others coming in fast, only half a mile away from the garden, and smirked. You can think about this offer. Until then, she made two black balls appear in her hands and threw them at Serena and Elena. Chris could see what was going on from all the way from where he was and used his instant transmission technique. The last thing the others saw was Serena and Elena become engulfed in the explosion. No! Everyone cried as they saw Elena and Serena engulfed in flames. They couldn't believe their eyes. In fact, they choose not to. Chris better have gotten there in time, Talia said to herself as she prayed to all the gods for their safety. Gohan seemed to be the only one not worried. He was a Saiyan after all. Feeling people's power levels came natural to them. Look over there. Gohan pointed to a small alleyway to their left to see Chris, Elena, and Serena a bit dazed, but alive none of the less. They didn't waste another moment and ran to their friends, questions rambling 100 miles an hour. Chris gave a stern look with his serious face. He didn't use that unless it was really important. Jez guys. Trying to make us go deaf. Now one at a time please. What happened? Gohan asked as he was the first one to speak. The others weren't mad for him taking the first question though, as they too wanted to hear what had happened. Serena looked at Elena hoping that she could answer that question, but she seemed out of it to do anything. It was then did she realize that she was leaning against Chris with her skin paler than usual and the burn mark the demon gave her began to swell. Chris, I think we should get Kendall some medical attention. Percy studied Serena to see that she too bore injuries from the radiation the explosion gave her. You too, Serena. Your skin doesn't look too well after being exposed to all that radiation. Serena looked down at herself to see that Percy was indeed right. Her arms were completely red and even bloody in some places. Her neck was turning yellow from the toxic chemicals it contained. Chris studied the burned marks before cussing. Mushroom bombs. One of the most toxic out there. Mushroom bombs? Serena questioned. Limax designed them to send poison throughout the body if their target isn't treated right away. He snarled before picking Elena up in his arms. Percy, you're gonna have to carry Serena to our room so we can perform the proper healing. Percy and Serena exchanged uneasy glances. But acting the way they were seemed childish, so Percy walked on over to Serena and threw her hand over his shoulder. One false move and I'll make sure you never see again. Serena snapped, already feeling weary about being so close to Percy. He just rolled his eyes and helped them over to the boys' room. Chris and Percy spent an hour healing Serena's and Elena's wounds, but even then it would take a full night's rest to be back in good health. So much for a fun field trip. It's turning out to be one nightmare after another, Chris complained as he fell flat on the bed next to the now sleeping Elena. Unlike Serena, who didn't care what the boys said, she fell fast asleep. Ah! How cute! I so need to get a picture of you two sleeping next to each other. Chris gave her a glare before looking up at the ceiling, getting lost in his own thoughts. Gohan and Vidal were talking about some tournament they were in while Talia and Percy were speaking in hushed whispers about something. Just by taking one look at Talia, Anyone could tell he was telling her the full story of what happened at camp. That reminds me. You were going to tell me what you were to Leah. And you too, Chris, Serena said rather excitedly. She loved learning about people's origins, especially when it came to people with powers like her. Talia looked at Percy uneasy before sighing. I'm the daughter of Zeus, the only daughter of Zeus as of right now. Serena stared at her in awe. No wonder why she was all electricity. Man, why didn't I freaking see it? Chris sat up proudly as he couldn't wait to tell her what he was. And I'm the same kind of thing Elena is. In fact, we're the last of our kind. Serena gave him a confused expression. We're both part of an ancient race called Valars. Valars? I thought you guys were elves. We are? Valars are considered high elves, but we surpass them in all ways. Unfortunately, the demon you meant today is also a Valar. There are only 3 of us left, Chris said with a sad face before he quickly smiled. Well, we're leaving for the water park tomorrow, so get plenty of rest. Serena. Wake up. Percy shouted in the demigod's ear, but she didn't seem to stir. Man, this girl sleeps like a rock. Talia rolled her eyes. Let me handle this seaweed brain. She went over to Serena's side and ran her hands through her hair. Serena hun, time to wake up. Percy's jaw dropped at how soft and innocent her voice sounded. Defiantly not the Talia he knew. Serena's eyes slowly crept open before she smiled. Can we have pancakes for breakfast? Talia turned back to Percy and smiled in victory. And that's how it's done, thank you. She walked off trying her best to hold back laughter. Percy just glared at her before going over to his bags. Serena slowly rose out of bed and rubbed the sleep from her eyes. Aren't we going to a water park or something like that? Yep. It's about an hour's drive from here. Vidal replied as she continued to brush her tangled hair. Serena's gaze then drifted upon Elena and Chris, sleeping peacefully next to each other. Shouldn't we wake up Sleeping Beauty and Prince Charming? They'll be out for another 30 minutes or so. They always need extra rest after encountering him, Gohan replied. Serena rummaged through her pocket and pulled out her cell phone. Perfect. I can get a picture of them. She squealed to herself and quickly took it. It came out perfect. You could clearly see the both of them and how happy they seemed. Do they always sleep together? Gohan nodded. They grew up with each other. Chris was chosen to be her protector at birth, so both their families agreed to let them get comfortable around each other. Serena looked back at her sleeping friends. Now they're inseparable. They share each other's feelings, thoughts, movements, you name it. It's the kind of bond most people unfortunately don't have. Serena sighed, glanced at Percy as she felt herself blush. I wish I could be close to someone like that. Her thoughts trailed off before a huge rumbling noise went off in the background. That could mean only one thing. Yay. It's time to eat. Gohan's hungry. Chris, who'd suddenly awoken, yelled as he accidentally hit his head on the roof. Elena's eyes soon fluttered alive as well before glaring at the dazed boy. Chris, be more careful, you could have hurt the roof. Serena gave her a strange look. I think the roof caused more brain damage to Chris than him hurting it. Oh, I know he'll be fine, but if that roof breaks, we'll have to pay for it. Serena rolled her eyes. A strong friendly bond, I see the effect that has, she remarked sarcastically to herself. The demigods and demi-Saiyans ate breakfast at IHOP before collecting their belongings. Their bus didn't leave until 9. There they meant back up with Uraza and Sherpner, who shared all moments they had back at the hotel. Gohan and Vidal seemed to be the only ones interested. The others were too occupied with other things. Talia was still trying to piece together the puzzle that was unraveling before them. There was going to be some trap, there always was. Percy was trying to stare out the window, but found that rather difficult as he kept glancing back at Serena's sleeping form. She seemed so happy and peaceful, he couldn't help but wonder what she was dreaming about. Just like Serena, both Chris and Elena fell asleep on one another, not caring if the other was leaning against the other. All in all, it seemed to be the first normal bus trip they ever had this entire year. But just like every unforgettable moment, the bus soon came to a stop. Don't forget to grab your towels and sunscreen. The principal sang on the intercom in the front of the bus as everyone stepped out. Everyone gasped as they saw how huge the place looked from the outside. Some rides climbing high in the sky as some couldn't even be seen from the outside. This is going to be fun, Serena smirked. Charlie. What's wrong? Godin asked his lovable dragon friend. Ever since Gohan and his friends left, Charlie seemed to be acting extra sad. Godin pouted as he couldn't figure it out. He couldn't stand seeing his friends upset and tried to think of any way to turn him back to the hyper dragon he meant. That's when the idea hit him. I know. We can take you to the place where the forest seems more mystic and awesome. Godin laughed as he pushed Charlie forward. Charlie gave Godin a sad look as if he didn't want to go anywhere, but the 7-year-old didn't seem to notice. The time is coming, but I don't think I can make myself hurt this boy anymore. The demigods, demi-Saiyans, and humans all ran up to the front gates, but they all sighed sadly as they read a sign. Opens at 12 today. That's so unfair. Chris complained and crossed his arms. Elena looked at her watch. One of the crusades gave her to see that it read 11:0 feet 7. Well, we have about an hour, she trailed off as the principal came running up to them. It seems they changed the opening times since the last time I came here, so I decided to allow you guys to go to the mall. The group of students exchanged overjoyed looks. Expect a selected few. Great, shopping, Elena silently sighed. She never liked going to busy places like the mall. Having the gift to see the dead didn't exactly help. Gohan didn't seem too thrilled either. The only time he did go shopping was when his mother Chi-Chi took him cloths shopping. What a terror that was. Serena smiled and turned to the others. Finally we can do something fun. The others didn't know why, but they seemed scared at the look she was giving them. Elena knew though. The first store she'd hit was the candy store, even Starbucks. We'll have to walk though, it's only across the street. The principal pointed to a rather large building that was unmistakably a mall. Well then let's go, Serena screeched before marching forward. Vital didn't hesitate to follow as she was excited to go as well. But I couldn't say that about the rest of them. Remind me to zap the owner of the water park when we get a chance, Talia whispered to Percy in a serious tone. He couldn't help but chuckle as he could imagine it now. The shadows seemed to bend at the corner of his eye. He turned to see what it was, but nothing seemed to be there. That's odd. In no time, they arrived at the overcrowded mall. Serena tried to slip into the candy store, but both Elena and Chris didn't let her. Even though it took everything they had to hold her back, they managed to keep her away. For the next 30 or so minutes, Vital and Serena tried on cloths. Eraza stuck around for a little while, but decided to go and browse the makeup stores. The others were either being dragged against their will into a dressing room or trying to hide from Serena and Vital. They were like shopping machines. Just hearing their voices from the other side of the room scared them. It was worth it in the end though. Serena got 2 new cute outfits and Vital got about 3. Serena was a bit irritated when Vital got a 90% discount, but she got over it. Along with their purchases, Talia got a cool-looking necklace that seemed ancient. Chris got a new hat since his last one was eaten by a cat. Long story. Elena got a bell necklace that she seemed proud of. Percy got an arrowhead that was said to be found in the ocean. And Gohan was forced to buy an outfit Vital picked out. It wasn't as horrible as his Great Saiyaman outfit, but it was still pretty bad. But he tried to act like he enjoyed it for Vital's sake. I can't wait till we show it to Chi-Chi. Vital smiled proudly before being interrupted by Gohan's loud rumbling stomach. You just have to be the loud one. She sighed sadly. Gohan laughed nervously and placed his hand behind his head. Something the Sun family was famous for. I guess it's lunchtime. What time is it? It's 11:33. 30 minutes left. Yay. Let's go to the food court. Chris hollered before grabbing Elena's hand and running off. Hey. Why are you only grabbing me? Because you always manage to get yourself in trouble when I'm not with you. Elena blushed a bit before getting her angry face on, like she has one. Hey. Belver. Casper. Wait up. They heard Serena call, but Chris just kept running, muttering something about slapping Serena. But Elena knew well enough that he wouldn't dare. She was too scary strong, being the daughter of Athena and all. In no time, they were all sitting at a table happily munching on their Subway sandwiches. They had a huge fight over what they were going to have, but we're not going into that little incident. Gohan gobbled up his in less than a minute and went to order another one. Percy was munching a chocolate chip cookie he got when shimmering blonde hair caught his eye. He turned to see a 14-year-old girl with medium dirty blonde hair and sea blue eyes. The strangest thing was that when he looked into them, he could swear he was at the beach. Earth to Percy. Talia hollered as she was losing her patents. That's it, she slugged Percy in the arm and he flinched in pain. Hey, why'd you do that? He snapped as he rubbed an arm. For ignoring me. You might have a brain full of seaweed, Percy glared at her, but you must be able to use it. Stop fighting, you two, Elena warned as she could see the fiery in both their eyes. The two demigods looked on over at her before sighing. Sorry, just had my thoughts and other things. Talia looked on over at the girl Percy was staring at. Yeah. Thoughts, she trailed off as she could feel a strange aura around her. She can't be her thoughts were cut off when she heard some people scream. Percy jumped out of his set and uncapped Riptide as 5 hellhounds began strolling on towards them, and they looked beyond hungry. Great. Who summoned the hounds? He looked over at Talia. She glared at him. Hey, don't look at me. Kronos is after wise girl over there, not me. Another scream broke out behind him. Now what? Percy said in annoyance and turned to face the Hydra. His skin seemed to crawl right off of him, but he stood his ground. I don't suppose you can use that lightning of yours to zap this thing. Talia turned before cursing in the ancient language. It was a freaking trap, and we fell right into it, again. Can you guys stop complaining and start killing these things now? Gohan and Vidal won't be able to evacuate everyone in time. Percy and Talia finally noticed that Serena was battling a hellhound while Vidal and Gohan were saving people from falling objects. Oh, yeah, they both turned bright red before Talia charged at a hellhound. Percy was just about to tackle another when he heard someone cry out for help. He turned and went pale in shock. The girl he saw earlier was on the ground throwing whatever she had at the monster to no avail. I'm coming. He reassured her before trying to think of a way to distract it. Serena was having more luck than Percy and Talia. She managed to get a good strike at the hellhound and weakened it, but that wasn't enough to make it retreat. It kept on trying to bit and claw at her, but she easily sidestepped everything. Talia activated her shield, which frightened 2 hellhounds. Medusa's head was overwhelming, but they soon regained their confidence and tried to strike her once more. Chris was having fun taunting one of them. Come and get me, you oversized steaks. These remarks made the hellhound mad, but not being able to at least get close to hit him made them even madder. Elena was having more difficulty with the hellhounds more than anyone else. It wasn't that they were difficult opponents, she was just having difficulty hitting it. Without the heart, she couldn't even feel her powers inside her. The only other option was to attack the monster with a sword or knife. Something she didn't have. Just my luck. Chris, when this is over, remind me to scold Elder Lamari for not making me a sword. Chris just chuckled where he was at. What a funny sight would that be? Percy looked around quickly to see that they were by a birthday party store. That's it. He quickly ran and took a few spray cans off the shelf and a candy called Sizzling Rocks. He ran back to the Hydra to see that it was trying to strike the girl, but not in a violent way. Is he not trying to hurt her? He wondered as he shook the can up as much as he could. Hey, big fat ugly thing. The Hydra turned to him with a growling noise before spitting out molding hot fire. Percy Barley jumped off the table in time before one of its other heads spit out this green acid stuff. He easily moved out of the way and managed to get behind it. Here goes nothing. He then jumped on its back and climbing up to its faces. And trust me, trying to climb on the Hydra was probably the craziest thing he's ever done. He was being trashed side to side and fire grazed over his body. Quickly shaking up the can, he sprayed it and colorful silly string covered one of the head's eyes. It shrieked as it tried to throw him off once more, but Percy was too quick. In less than a minute, the Hydra was completely blind and Percy jumped off its back. Serena finally stabbed the hellhound in the throat and it slowly dissolved to ashes. She smiled in victory and turned before her face went pale in terror. Percy. She let out a blood-curdling scream. Percy looked back up at the Hydra to see that it knew where he landed at. He thought he was safe. He thought he'd had a few more minutes, but the Hydra unleashed a fury fire attack where Percy was. His eyes went wide before forcing them shut, feeling the heat rushing towards him. Percy could feel the heat coming at him mercilessly. This is it. Serena began rushing towards him on the brink of tears. There had to be a way to save him. There had to be something she could do. That's when something inside her snapped and she called out the first word that came to her mind. Gallus. She felt the drain of her energy immediately and feared she would collapse where she was. but saving Percy was all she cared about. Percy sat there waiting until he felt himself slip away to oblivion, but when that didn't happen, he looked up to see the fire was being blocked by a barely invisible force field he'd seen Chris do. But Chris wasn't the one doing it. Serena? Both Chris and Elena questioned as they knew from the aura the shield gave off that Serena was the source. Percy knew what he had to do now. Taking the sizzling rock candy out of his pocket, he aimed it for the Hydra's mouth. "Please guys, just let me have a good aim just this once," and he threw it successfully into the beast's mouth. Soon the fire and green acid ceased as it was shaking uncontrollably. "I never liked those things," Percy laughed before taking Riptide and stabbing it in the heart. It screeched and thrashed itself around the entire mall before becoming nothing but a pile of ashes. Serena finally made it over to Percy, breathing heavily from the lack of energy but still half the angered face. "You almost died, again. Do you know how this makes me feel?" Percy looked over at her in question. "Huh?" Serena felt herself blush madly before slugging him savagely in the arm. Percy stumbled a few inches. The frightened girl on the floor smirked deviously. She didn't know how or why, but she could feel the love radiating from the two of them. "Ah. You guys love each other." Percy and Serena looked down at the girl on the ground, almost completely forgetting about her. "And you might be?" Serena asked with a tone laced in her jealous anger. Talia saw the situation and quickly ran over, Elena and Chris following her example. The girl slowly rose to her feet before dusting off all the loose crumps. "I'm Hannah, and you might be," she asked with the same irritated tone. Serena looked like she was going to punch her out right there and then, but she held back. "I'm Percy Jackson. And I'm Serena Peck." Hannah stared at the two once again as she could feel their hidden connection and giggled. "Yep. There's no doubt you two like each other. Hey, when you guys get married, don't forget to invite me." Serena was just about to punch her when Elena leapt and got in the way. Serena stopped at the last second and scowled. "Get out of my way, Belver." Elena looked up at her with the same saddened face she gave when someone was hurt. "Please don't hurt her." "Belver? What kind of name is that?" Hannah asked, looking more confused than ever. Chris couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, that's her last name. Her first name is. He looked up at the ceiling in deep thought. "Oh yeah. It's Kendall." He faltered. Hannah noticed this immediately, but didn't care much to ask why. "Oh yeah. You're that girl with the dirty blonde hair." Percy peeped up as he recognized her from earlier. "What? I don't have dirty blonde hair. It's strawberry," she shouted before holding up a piece that contained little red streaks. Percy blushed in embarrassment and looked away. "Sorry, I didn't see it," Hannah sighed. "Well, it is believable. You were probably gabbing at Serena all day." This time Elena didn't have time to stop Serena as she threw a punch in her face, hitting her directly in the nose. Hannah howled in pain and grasped her throbbing nose and tried to punch back, but Chris grabbed her just in time. "Oh, so you want to keep at it then?" Serena rolled up her sleeves and began to march over to her when Elena wrapped her delicate arms around her. "Serena, please." Serena looked on down at her friend and back up to her newfound enemy. "Man, I hate it when she does this." But whatever anger she had drifted away and she rolled her sleeves back down. Elena released her grip before smiling proudly. "Thanks, Rena." Hannah soon calmed down and Chris let her go. She would have felt weird being held back by a complete stranger, but there was something about him that calmed her down. Even the girl they called Kendall. They must be the goody two-shoes in the group. Her attention then gazed upon a gothic girl who seemed to be studying her intently. "You're a demigod, aren't you?" Everyone went silent and looked over Hannah more carefully. They didn't notice at first, but she was radiating the essence of a half-blood. "What's a demigod?" "We'll explain later. Do you have a family?" "Yeah, well, I'm adopted." "That'll be harder to tell." "Harder to tell what?" Hannah was beginning to get annoyed with being asked about her family. "I mean, what right did she have?" Talia sighed as Gohan and Vidal landed. "Hey guys, we better get heading down to the water park. It opened 5 minutes ago. The end now. We will see you in the next video.